Chapter 461. Compensation returning back to a minute earlier. After 4 consecutive treasures had leaped off the tree leaves and flown to him, no matter how foolish Xianxia was, it was clear that these artifacts had acknowledged him and wanted to leave with him. After all, treasures were crafted with a purpose in mind, and they craved to display their value. Being trapped within the harmonious stream of flowing goblets for a time so long that swords were buried in dust and pearls lost their glow had left these artifacts' spirits indignant. As such, as soon as they were identified, they immediately submitted to Xianxia. "I won't hold back then." His mouth slowly curled out as he stretched out his hand and swiftly kept the treasures who leaped off the leaves into his storage ring. Even though Xianxia wasn't very knowledgeable about treasures, he could tell that they were valuable based on their descriptions in the library of Heaven's Path. In any case, they were definitely worth more than a few hundred spirit stones. He would be insane to turn down these valuable treasures. After putting away those objects, while he was waiting for the next artifact to appear, the harmonious stream of flowing goblets suddenly shook and stopped. The flow of water also abruptly halted. Could it be that this artifact has something wrong with it as well? Xianxia frowned. The harmonious stream of flowing goblets was driven by a formation, and logically speaking, its flow shouldn't stop until all 10 of the artifacts appeared. Why did it suddenly stop when only 4 had appeared? Let me see if I can fix this. Doubtful, Xianxia stretched out his hands and touched the stone pedestal. The harmonious stream of flowing goblets should be similar to the various trials of the master-teacher examination. Most likely, it was a spirit tool used to control the water flow and protect the treasures. Since it came to an abrupt stop, it probably meant that it was malfunctioning. However, Xianxia wasn't worried at all. After all, he had the library of Heaven's Path. As long as it was a flaw or loophole, he could easily determine the problem and find a solution to it. A book appeared, and browsing through it, he picked up his brush and started writing some words down. The harmonious stream of flowing goblets is a spirit low-tier tool, and it's a part of the appraiser hall. Right after writing just a few flaws, a buzzing sound echoed and the entire place began to shake, as though expressing its intimacy toward Xianxia. This toy can be taken away as well. Sensing that the attitude of the harmonious stream of flowing goblets was similar to that of the artifacts he identified before, Xianxia was astonished. If he could take the harmonious stream of flowing goblets away, didn't it mean that he could claim all of the treasures here in one go? Let's give it a try then. Chuckling softly, Xianxia issued the harmonious stream of flowing goblets a command, and as he expected, it didn't try to resist him at all. The entire tool was placed inside his storage ring. What the heck? It really worked. The edges of Xianxia's lips crept upward, just as he was about to see if there was anything else of value in the room. Jia! The door opened abruptly and Hall Master Sai, Elder Lu, and Elder Chen rushed in. You took the harmonious stream of flowing goblets as well. Upon seeing the empty room, the lips of the 3 4-star appraisers quivered. They stared at the young man before them as if he was a monster. Are you sure you're here to challenge the harmonious stream of flowing goblets and not to sweep away everything within it? A moment ago, there were still mountains, flowing water, flowers. But all that was left now was an empty room devoid of anything. You aren't here to challenge the trial but to take away everything of value in the appraiser hall. Xianxia, the harmonious stream of flowing goblets is property of the appraiser hall. It represents our prestige and dignity. I beseech you to leave it behind. Holding back the urge to spurt blood, Hall Master Sai uttered with a scarlet face. It was just a moment ago that he addressed Xianxia as Brother Zhong, but at this moment, he didn't dare to do so anymore. Not only did the other party manage to claim so many treasures in a single move, he even took away the operating table as well. The other party's mastery of appraisal was definitely way above of his. He was no longer qualified to call the other party brother anymore. Leave it behind? But it has willingly chosen to acknowledge me as its master. Xianxia glared at the other party. You must be joking. How much do you think these treasures are worth? How can I simply leave them behind? That. I know. Hall Master Sai's face was flushed. The ownership of artifacts usually hinged on a single word affinity. All of these artifacts had acknowledged Xianxia as their master, and this showed that he had affinity with them all. As an appraiser, Xianxia should be more than aware of this. If he were to force the other party to hand it over, that would be no different from stealing. But the harmonious stream of flowing goblets was one of the most valuable treasures of their appraiser hall, so they couldn't afford to lose it. Otherwise, even before the headquarters dismissed him, he would probably have to resign from his seat for the discontentment of the other appraisers in the hall. It was just like someone claiming and taking away the spirit tool used to operate the various tests in the Master-Teacher Pavilion. If word were to spread out, the Master-Teacher Pavilion would surely become a laughingstock. After a moment of hesitation, Hall Master Sai said, "How about this? As long as Xianxia is willing to leave the harmonious stream of flowing goblets behind, the appraiser hall is willing to compensate your losses." "Compensate? You wish to pay me spirit stones? I'm fine with it." Xianxia started counting on his fingers. The harmonious stream of flowing goblets contains 10 artifacts. I won't demand too much, so I'll go by the estimate of 5,000 spirit stones for each of them. Totaling them up, it's only 50,000 spirit stones. As for this operating platform, I'll take it to be 10,000 then. Thus, as long as the appraiser hall pays me 60,000 spirit stones, I'll return everything back to you. 60,000 spirit stones. The 3 appraisers trembled and their eyes turned red. They were the appraiser hall, not a bank. Besides, even if they were the bank, they wouldn't be able to fork out so many spirit stones either. We truly aren't able to take out so many spirit stones at the moment. Hall Master Sai felt so embarrassed that he wished that there was a hole in the floor that he could dive into at this very moment. What the heck was this? When no one was able to clear the harmonious stream of flowing goblets, he wished that some challenger could simply overcome it. Yet, now that someone had succeeded, he found himself on the verge of tears, wishing that it was just a dream. "You can't take it out? All right then. If you all can take out the following items, I'm willing to fork out the items in return." Seeing the tearful faces of the 3 great 4-star appraisers, Xianxia knew that it was impossible for them to fork out so many spirit stones. Thus, after a moment of hesitation, he proposed, "Firstly, help me find as many transcendent mortal cultivation techniques and battle techniques as possible, the more the better. Other than that, I want the soulless metal humanoid and all books related to soul oracles. Similarly, the more there are, the better it is." Actually, Xianxia didn't really need the treasures within the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. If he really wanted to earn spirit stones, there were various means for him to do so. There were only 2 priorities for him at the moment. The first was to find a way to wake up Lu Chong's dormant soul and bring him out of his coma, and the second was to raise his cultivation and advance through the master-teacher ranks so that he could become a 9-star master-teacher before reaching 30. Treasures and spirit stones were just means to these ends. He thought that the other party would say something overboard, and upon hearing that he only needed these few items, Hall Master Sai was taken aback. Even though they were the appraiser hall, they still had quite a decent collection of transcendent mortal cultivation techniques and battle techniques. And as for books on Soul Oracle, even though this occupation no longer existed and there were many contentions regarding its existence, the appraiser hall still had a few books on the occupation. Just that, it was hard to gauge whether the information was true or not. Honestly speaking, these items weren't worth much. There was no comparison between them and those treasures in the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. Having witnessed the greed of the other party for himself, he thought that the other party would be willing to stoop to even unscrupulous means to earn spirit stones. Since he had earned the upper hand this time, he thought that the other party would raise some outrageous request that would cause the appraiser hall's bankruptcy. Yet, to think that it would be just these few items. Was there a problem somewhere? Seeing the bewildered faces before him, Xianxia asked, "What, can't you do it?" "I can find a few of the others, but regarding the soulless metal humanoid, as it doesn't belong to the appraiser hall, someone is just keeping it with us at the moment for the auction. I can't say for sure how it'll be auctioned and how much it'll be auctioned for." Hall Master Sai said. The figure he had given for the soulless metal humanoid before was just a rough estimate. Even if the appraiser hall were to speak on Xianxia's behalf, it was hard to tell whether the seller would be willing to sell it to him. Thus, They couldn't give their word on this matter. But of course, this was just a conservative way of putting it. In comparison to other powers in the region, the influence of the appraiser hall was immense. On top of that, the item was to be auctioned on their territory. If even the appraiser hall couldn't get it, it would be even more unlikely for others to lay their hands on it. After a moment of contemplation, Xianxia said, "There's no problem about that. Didn't you say that the clearing the harmonious stream of flowing goblets would entitle me to a reward of 5,000 spirit stones? I'll bid for it myself. You just have to gather the other things that I asked for. The quantity for each of those books mustn't be any less than 1,000. 1,000 books." Hall Master Sai's face went pale. He thought that the other party was just asking for a few dozen books. To ask for 1,000 of them in one go, what did he wish to do with them? He thought that the other party was letting the appraiser hall go by not insisting on the 60,000 spirit stones, but it seemed like things weren't as easy as he thought. Books on soul oracles are rare even when considering the entire Myriad Kingdom alliance. At best, we'll just only be able to find a few dozen of them. As for Transcendent Mortal Cultivation Technique manuals, if it's only Transcendent Mortal 1 Dan Prolonged Longevity Realm manuals, I think we'll still be able to find above 1,000 of it. But for 2 Dan Origin Energy Realm, the quantity is significantly lower. My estimate is that we'll only be able to find around 500 of them. As for 3 Dan Yin Yang Realm, while there are a lot of them in the Myriad Kingdom City, in Honghai City, it'll already be great if we can gather 100 of them. Doing a rough estimate, Hall Master Sai explained the circumstances for each of the items. Even though the Honghai City was a massive city in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, it was still inferior as compared to that of the Myriad Kingdom City. As such, it wasn't as easy to gather over 1,000 manuals here. This was especially so for Transcendent Mortal 3 Dan Cultivation Technique manuals. Even if one were to search through all of the powerful clans in the city, it would be hard to find 100 of them. On top of that, every single clan valued their manual as their greatest treasure and they didn't allow it to go out into the public. Even if the appraiser hall were to exert its influence, it would be hard to gather them. That's fine as well. I'll take whatever that's available, so go ahead and look for them. Knowing that he was limited by the geographic boundaries and that it was already great if he could gather this much here, Xianxia nodded and agreed to it. Then, flicking his wrist, he took out the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. He was willing to return this to the other party. But as for the other 4 artifacts that had already acknowledged him, they shouldn't even think about it. Thank you, Xianxia. Hall Master Sai heaved a sigh of relief and clasped his fist. Don't worry about it. All right, I would like to get the 5,000 spirit stones from clearing the trial now. Xianxia waved his hands. Yuan, I'll go get it for you now. Hall Master Sai walked out. Not too long later, he returned, and with a flick of his wrist, a bunch of spirit stones appeared in front of him. The spiritual energy in the surroundings immediately rippled, forming a mini tornado. Scanning through it and confirming that there were around 5,000 spirit stones in the pile, Xianxia chuckled and put it all away in his storage ring. After keeping the items away, Xianxia was about to say something when Sun Qiong walked up and said, "Young master, this Elder Chen has just lost to us in a bet and he owes us 6,000 spirit stones." Bet? 6,000 spirit stones? Taken aback, Xianxia turned to the elder and exclaimed, "To offer 6,000 spirit stones in a single go, Elder Chen, you are indeed much more generous than Hall Master Sai." Generous? Elder Chen cried. How was this generosity? How did it feel more like suicide? Chapter 462, Celestial Designer's Mechanical Container. From Sun Qiong's explanation, it didn't take long before Xianxia understood the happenings of the entire incident. Not bad, you did well. The only thing pitiable is that the number of spirit stones at stake were too few. No matter what, it should be at least 10,000. Not expecting for Sun Qiong to perform so excellently, earning so many spirit stones for him through a wager, Xianxia looked at him in commendation. 10,000. Elder Chen's lips twitched once more. 6,000 was sufficient to leave him so frustrated that he felt like committing suicide already. If the debt was truly 10,000, he would have already run away. Since I've the wager, I won't refuse to pay up. However, Stepping forward, Elder Chen gritted his teeth and said, "My total fortune only adds up to around 3,000 spirit stones. As for the rest, can you allow me to repay it back in a year's time?" "A year's time?" "A year later. It would be useless even if you were to give me 20,000 spirit stones." Xianxia shook his head. It had only been 2 to 3 months since his journey started in Xianxia Kingdom. A year later. He could foresee that 3,000 spirit stones would just be an insignificant sum to him. Elder Chen's face flushed red. As a transcendent mortal 3-dan expert and a 4-star appraiser, he was a respectable figure. If he were to refuse to pay up after losing a wager, even if the other party didn't do anything at all, he would die from the humiliation. Besides, if his trustworthiness was brought into question, his career as an appraiser might come to an end. Thus, after hesitating for a moment, he clenched his jaws and said, "Even though I don't have many liquid assets, as a 4-star appraiser, I do have some treasures in my possession. How about this? I'll allow you to pick any item among my treasure as compensation for the 3,000 spirit stones." Appraisers were very similar to antique collectors. Even though they might not have many liquid assets, they had quite a valuable inventory in their home. These items were treasures that he had slowly accumulated over the course of his life. If not for being forced into a corner, he would never bear to take them out. "Treasure. Let me take a look. If it's suitable, I can strike off your entire debt of 6,000 spirit stones for it." Knowing that this person would surely have some valuable possessions having dealt in artifacts his entire life, Xianxia nodded in agreement. "All right." Knowing that it was impossible to avoid this anymore, Elder Chen flicked his wrist. Hualala. Before long, a pile of treasures appeared before the crowd. There were antiques, paintings, weapons, sets of armor, as well as some bizarre clay molds. There were all kinds of treasures within Elder Chen's collection, and astonishingly, its total value seemed to exceed even that of the shops on the second floor. "I only have these, feel free to choose." Elder Chen forcefully put on a generous front and gestured. These were his prized possession, and he couldn't bear to part with any single one of them. However, what else could he do having lost the wager? It simply wasn't worth shattering the reputation that he'd built up over the course of so many years due to a wager. "Let me take a look." Activating the Eye of Insight, Xianxia began browsing through the various artifacts on the ground. A moment later, he shook his head in disappointment. Most of these items were rare and valuable, but to Xianxia, they didn't hold much meaning. In contrast to these items, spirit stones were much more practical to him. Xianxia turned to look at Elder Chen helplessly and said, "You only collected these few useless toys over the course of your entire life." Elder Chen's face flushed in embarrassment. Knowing that the other party was a grandmaster appraiser and his eye for things exceeded even that of the hall master, he couldn't protest at all. He had treasured these possessions as though they were his own children, yet the other party viewed them as nothing but useless toys. He couldn't help but feel slightly awkward. "Elder Chen, why don't you take out that object that you obtained just a while ago? If Xianxia likes it, he might even trade it for 6,000 spirit stones." Just when Elder Chen was at a loss, he heard Elder Lu's telepathic message. "That object." Recalling something, Elder Chen hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Turning to Xianxia, he said, "Xianxia, please hold on for a moment. I have an object that I've been unable to identify ever since I received it. I'll bring it over now. If even that doesn't interest you, then I've nothing else to offer you anymore." "All right." Hearing that the other party still had another treasure, Xianxia nodded in agreement. He wasn't in a hurry anyway. Elder Chen turned around to leave, and around half an hour later, he returned, and with a flick of his wrist, a black object appeared before him. It was a fist-sized black sphere, and no matter how one looked at it, it seemed to be nothing more than an ordinary ball of lead. "You call this a treasure?" Sun Qiong took a glance at it and protested, "Elder Chen, aren't you trying to take advantage of us if you wish to use this to call off the entire debt?" Elder Chen's face flushed. "You're misunderstanding, Elder Chen." Hall Master Sai said, "This object was dug up from an ancient tomb 10 years ago, and even though it doesn't seem like anything much, it's invulnerable. We've tried quenching, burning, slashing, and smashing, but nothing could leave a mark on it. We've studied it innumerable times, but we weren't able to determine what it is. Since you don't know what it is, how can you say that it's a treasure? Sun Qiong refuted. You can't really put it that way. It could be possible that it is an ore that no one has ever seen before. If one used it to craft a weapon, one would surely be able to forge a top-notch weapon, Hallmaster Sai said. Use it to forge a weapon? Putting aside whether it's possible or it'll surely be a troublesome and lengthy process. Sun Qiong harumphed. Enough. Allow me to take a look at it first. Interrupting Butler Sun's words, Xianxia stepped forward. He had tried to examine the metal ball with the eye of insight, but to his astonishment, he realized that he was unable to see anything about it. In his time in the appraiser hall, he learned that the true treasures were among the objects that he couldn't see through with his eye of insight. Thus, he grabbed the ball and muttered flaws internally. Who? A book appeared in the library. Xianxia quickly flipped it open. Celestial Designer's Mechanical Container, forged by the Celestial Designer Institute with complex mechanical systems. It can't be opened without knowing the specific sequences required to do so. It's likely that some important treasure is hidden within it. Flaws. After which were the various flaws of the object. There are only 17 flaws. Even though the Library of Heaven's Path didn't label the value of the object and Xianxia had never heard of the Celestial Designer Institute, he was still astounded by the number of flaws contained in the object. The flaws that the Library of Heaven's Path could detect ranged from the material of the object to the technique used to craft it, covering nearly all fields possible. Take the first artifact from the harmonious stream of flowing goblets, the copper hammer, for example. Even though the Eye of Insight couldn't determine any problem with it, the Library of Heaven's Path was still able to find a total of 72 flaws. But of course, it didn't mean that the fewer flaws there were, the more valuable an artifact would be. It was also related to the complexity of the artifact. The more complex an artifact was, the more likely it was that there would be flaws in it. This object was known as the Celestial Designer's Mechanical Container, and based on its description, it was clear that there was a system far more complex than the copper hammer contained within it. Yet, despite being more complex than the copper hammer, there were so few mistakes with it. Didn't that mean that the value of this object far surpassed that of the copper hammer? Treasure. This was definitely a treasure. Xianxia, are you able to determine what this artifact is? Seeing that Xianxia had examined the object for a long time already, Elder Chen couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. Hall Master Sai and Elder Lu also turned over as well. They had studied this artifact for many years, and they had utilized all means available to them to examine it. However, they were still unable to come to a conclusion. The fellow before him had such a great appraising ability that he could even earn the acknowledgement of the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. Perhaps, he might really be able to see through it. I'm not able to tell what it is exactly as well, so I might require some more time to examine it. Understanding the logic of keeping one's wealth a secret, Xianxia chose to hide the matter. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "All right, even though I'm unable to determine what this artifact is, I think that there's something deeper to it as well. I'll trade this for 6,000 spirit stones then. What do you think of it?" Fine. Not expecting that this artifact could replace the 6,000 spirit stones, Elder Chen heaved a long sigh of relief. At the same time, he secretly sneaked a glance at the plump servant. The one that he wagered with was this fellow. Would he protest to such a decision? As a master teacher, Xianxia should still pay some consideration to his reputation. Even if this artifact wasn't worth the price, he wouldn't pursue the matter in the future. However, this servant was different. He was afraid that the other party would continue arguing with him. If that was the case, he would be put in truly tighter spot. However, after taking a glance, he saw the plump servant standing quietly at the side, not interfering in his young master's decisions at all. It seems like he respects his young master quite a lot. Seeing that the plump servant had decided to stay out of this matter, the tenseness finally left Elder Chen's body. In truth, even though part of the reason why Sun Qiong didn't speak up was out of respect for Xianxia, the main reason was because he knew that the young master was smarter than him and would never allow himself to be on the losing side of a deal. Since the young master was willing to purchase this ball for 6,000 spirit stones, it could only mean that its value was way beyond that amount. Since that was the case, why should he interfere in the matter? I've already sent some men to gather the books that you want. It'll probably take around 3 days. Seeing Xianxia keep the ball into his ring, Hall Master Sai chuckled. The auction is about to start. Shall we go over? All in all, the time they had spent here totaled up to nearly 2 hours. Judging from the time, it was indeed about time for the auction to start. If they were to head over immediately, they would barely make it for the opening. All right. Xianxia nodded. The main goal of his journey here was the soulless metal humanoid. It was imperative that he attended the auction so that he could obtain the item. Thus, under Hall Master Sai's lead, the group hurriedly headed to the auction hall. The auction hall was located on the 2nd floor, not too far away from the first-class pavilion. Before the group even reached the auction hall, they could already see a huge crowd gathering outside. It seemed like the items offered in the auction were extremely attractive. There were many powerful and affluent individuals and powers here. Activating the Eye of Insight, Xianxia swept across the crowd and saw dozens of transcendent mortal experts. In fact, most of them had reached 2 Dan and 3 Dan. As expected of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, the number of experts were indeed incredible. Isn't the auction hall operated by the appraiser hall? Following behind Hall Master Sai, the group managed to enter the venue without any hiccups. Not too long later, they arrived at a relatively large suite. At this moment, Xianxia couldn't help but raise a question. They were in the appraiser hall, so logically speaking, the auction hall should belong to them as well. Yet, why did they require an invitation letter to enter the venue? Could it be that the appraiser hall didn't have a stake in the auction hall? No, the auction hall isn't operated like us. It's similar to the first-class pavilion, it's only in a working relationship with the appraiser hall. We're in charge of appraising their artifacts while they are responsible for finding buyers and customers to conduct the auction. After all, we don't have sufficient manpower and energy to manage all of these miscellaneous affairs. Hall Master Sai answered. The strength of an appraiser lay in appraising and determining the value of an artifact. As such, they might not be as adept at running a business. Thus, it was much better to leave it to the veteran merchants instead. Chapter 463. The auction begins. No wonder. Xianxia shook his head. If this auction hall was operated by them, they would have been able to arrange a meeting between him and the buyer. His chances of getting the soulless metal humanoid would have been much higher. Have you all appraised the soulless metal humanoid? May I know the story behind it? Since the auction hadn't begun yet, Xianxia asked about the soulless metal humanoid. After receiving the 5,000 spirit stones reward, he'd repaid the loan he borrowed from Hall Master Sai and compensated him with an additional 100 spirit stones. Thus, he had a total of 4,800 spirit stones on hand at the moment. Even though Hall Master Sai was rather confident that it was sufficient for him to take away the soulless metal humanoid, Xianxia still felt that he should listen to the details to make a judgment himself. All right. Hall Master Sai nodded. Around a month ago, an elder came to the appraiser hall and requested that I appraise an artifact. The artifact seems to have been forged out of gold, and it's shaped like a puppet. After much assessment and contemplation, I determined that it is the legendary soulless metal humanoid. I sought Elder Lu and Elder Chen's opinions on the matter before coming to a final verdict. That metal humanoid is incomparably resilient, and most probably, it was crafted by having a human swallow metal while they were still alive before proceeding to use a special secret art to forge the puppet. Its body is wholesome, thus preventing the slightest bit of aura from leaking out. A formation is constructed within its body, and one can control it through spirit stones. In terms of strength, it possesses a might comparable to a transcendent mortal 3 Dan expert. While they were alive, was the soulless metal humanoid crafted out of real human bodies? Xianxia was taken aback. He had only heard about soul oracles from Pavilion Master Luo, so he wasn't too sure about the details. When he heard about the soulless metal humanoid, he thought that it would be a man-made object just like those puppets he met in the Master Teacher Pavilion when he was taking the Master Teacher examination. However, Sai Xiaoyu's words seemed to hint at something very different. Of course it isn't. Man-made puppets, just like other crafted tools, will gain spirit over time. As such, it's impossible for a human soul to delve in it. Even if one managed to do it, one's control over the puppet would still be lacking. This is similar to weapons and armor. Even though they are convenient to use, one still isn't able to manipulate it as easily as one's own limbs.
Hall Master Sai said. Xianxia nodded.
No matter how adept one was in using tools, it could never match up to the level of control one had over one's own limbs. A man-made puppet followed the same rule as well. Even if one could drive it with one's soul, one wouldn't be able to move it as seamlessly as one's own body. However, the soulless metal humanoid is different. It's crafted using the body of a living human coated with metal. Not only is its defensive and offensive capability impressive, more importantly, it can contain a soul perfectly, making it easy for a cultivator to drive it. Legend has it that even though soul oracles had outstanding control over their souls, their physical bodies were extremely weak. As such, they possessed such powerful physical bodies with their souls to grant them immense power, thus making them a subject of fear.
Hall Master Sai explained.
Xianxia finally came to a realization, and he was astounded. To craft a living human into a puppet to protect oneself. This occupation sure was bizarre and vile. The reputation of soul oracles was put alongside poison masters in ancient times. They were the two most feared occupations. It is said that soul oracles, with their powerful souls, could forcibly extract a cultivator's soul from his body and forge a soulless metal humanoid through their empty body. In fact, some of the more powerful soul oracles were even able to create a fearsome army of metal humanoids.
Hall Master Sai continued, this was the reason why it was struck down by the other occupations.
The Master Teacher Pavilion personally led the other occupations on a crusade against it and destroyed the soul oracles, thus terminating their heritage. I only learned of the existence of the soulless metal humanoid by flipping through innumerable ancient books. Otherwise, I would have probably just thought of it as an ordinary puppet. Suppressing his anxiety, Xianxia asked, I heard that this occupation possesses the ability to wake dormant souls.
May I know if it's true?
Even though Luo Qianhong was a 3-star master teacher, his knowledge of this subject was definitely inferior to Hall Master Sai. Thus, Hall Master Sai's evaluation was likely to be much more accurate. The soul is a very complicated and profound subject. Only 7-star master teachers would begin to dabble in the subject. Otherwise, no matter how strong one was, even if one were a transcendent mortal 9-dan pinnacle expert, one wouldn't dare to touch in this field. The only exception to this rule are the soul oracles. Those of this occupation could even extract the soul from a living body, so waking a dormant soul should be a simple feat to them.
Hall Master Sai replied with a grim expression.
Upon hearing the other party confirm the matter, Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief. All right, the auction is starting. While the duo was speaking, a commotion had sounded below. Turning around to take a look, the host was already on the stage. Taking a closer look, the host was no other than Elder Chen. As a 4-star appraiser, an elder of the appraiser hall, his words felt more credible and persuasive, and in such auctions, trust was an important factor to hiking up the prices. The items on auction today cover weapons, armors, antiques, paintings, celestial treasures, the ancient soulless metal humanoid, and such, totaling up to a number of 35 artifacts. Every single one of them has been approved by the appraiser hall, and we can guarantee their authenticity. Elder Chen's gaze swept across the crowd with majesty. As soon as he reached the stage, he turned into that indomitable 4-star appraiser. Not a hint of that fellow who was forced to a corner by Sun Qiong and ended up spurting blood about remained.
35 artifacts. So many.
Of course, the auction of the appraiser hall is only conducted once a year. As such, all of the artifacts put up for sale are invaluable treasures. I've prepared a very long time for this auction. There are some things among the 35 artifacts that I'm determined to get. After hearing the introduction, the crowd fell into a commotion. The auction was around the size of an ordinary sparring field. People of Hall Master Sai's standing were allocated a suite, whereas ordinary customers were seated below. Some of these people were itinerant cultivators, and some of them were guests of prestigious clans as well. In any case, all of them had prepared a long time for this auction, determined to obtain the object of their desire. Looking through the window, Hall Master Sai commented, "It seems like the allure of the soulless metal humanoid is great. There are many experts here."
Indeed.
Jin Songhai nodded in agreement. He was a transcendent mortal 4-dan expert, and he had followed the Alliance head for quite a period of time. As such, he knew most of the reputable experts in the Alliance. Even though this auction was conducted in Honghai City, scanning across the room, he could see many experts whose strength was on par with him, some exceeding him even. It was impossible for so many powerful experts to be gathered in an ordinary auction. Most likely, they were all here for the soulless metal humanoid. I'm afraid that 3,000 spirit stones might be insufficient to take down the soulless metal humanoid. Hall Master Sai smiled bitterly after scanning the room. His previous judgment was that the metal humanoid should be only worth around 1,500 spirit stones. Even if the price doubles due to the heated atmosphere in an auction, it'll only cost around 3,000 spirit stones. However, considering the number of experts that were here for it, it probably wouldn't be easy to win the bid at that price.
Let's wait and see then.
If I really don't have sufficient money, I'll be depending on Hall Master Sai to loan me some then.
Zhong Xian chuckled. Ah.
Hall Master Sai rolled his eyes. To think this fellow hadn't forgotten that matter yet.
Everyone, please remain silent. The auction will be starting now.
I'll be bringing up the first item now. After allowing everyone to vent their astonishment, Elder Chen smiled in delight and gestured grandly.
Huala.
A stone pedestal below slowly rose up, revealing a narrow and long jade box. Opening the jade box, a transparent plant appeared before everyone's eyes. It exuded a bone-chilling frost that seemed to reach straight into one's soul. Even when looking at it from afar, the crowd couldn't help but feel as though they were about to be reduced into pillars of ice. This is a 500-year-old glacier spirit grass, and it has exceptional effects for those who cultivating ice attribute cultivation techniques. If one were to forge it into a pill, one's cultivation would surely rise immensely. The minimum bid is 220 spirit stones, and every increment must be no lower than 20 spirit stones.
Glacier spirit grass?
This is the main ingredient for the Grade 4 Ice Soul Pill. Not only is it useful for those cultivating ice attribute cultivation technique, it is also extremely useful to transcendent mortal 3-dan yin-yang realm cultivators.
Indeed, this is truly a treasure.
As expected of the auction conducted once a year by the Appraiser Hall. Even the first item is exceptional. I'll be taking this ice spirit grass, 240 spirit stones. You think you can buy a 500-year-old spirit herb with just that bit of money? Dream on, 260 spirit stones.
Ha, it's mine.
300 spirit stones. Even though the first artifact was only a spirit herb, it immediately heated up the atmosphere. The glacier spirit grass was an extremely herb in itself, needless to say, one that had reached a maturity of 500 years. In the end, the hammer price was 540 spirit stones. As expected of an auction conducted in the Appraiser Hall, it sure is lively. Upon seeing this sight, Zhong Xian was impressed. Based on his estimations, this glacier spirit grass was only worth 300 spirit stones at maximum. Yet, it was hiked up to a whole 540 spirit stones. That was almost a single fold of his estimated price. Just like Hall Master Sai had said, it probably wouldn't be easy for him to take down the soulless metal humanoid. After which, the second item was brought out. It was a unique mineral which enhanced the durability and sharpness of a weapon greatly if a sliver of it was added during the crafting process. As soon as the mineral appeared, the atmosphere immediately became even more elevated than when the glacier spirit grass appeared. What that accompanied cultivators through their days were weapons. The stronger their weapons, the greater their ability to protect themselves. As such, who would be willing to miss such a good item? It didn't take long for the price to exceed 600 spirit stones, and eventually, a middle-aged man claimed it at a price of 720 spirit stones. The third object is a long sword known as Cold Yin. It was crafted by a 4-star pinnacle blacksmith, Ju Muzi. He gathered a total of 37 minerals, one of which is the extremely valuable Cold Yin rock, before managing to forge the weapon. It contains an extremely strong yin attribute within, and if a cold attribute cultivator were to wield it, its might would be increased by several folds, allowing one to bring out fighting prowess far exceeding their limits. Elder Chen slowly drew the sword from its sheath, and an incredibly cold gleam immediately escaped into the room, leaving shivers down the spine of whoever it shines upon. This is a spirit intermediate tier weapon, and it can cut through metal as easily as though mud. The minimum bid is 500 spirit stones, and every increment must be no lower than 50 spirit stones. Cold yin sword? I heard that it's an extremely powerful sword suited for females. A spirit intermediate tier weapon is more than sufficient for the usage of a transcendent mortal 4-dan expert. Given that, 500 spirit stone isn't too expensive. I want it. Don't even dream of competing with me. I'll be taking this sword down for my companion. 550 spirit stones. The cold gleam of the sword brought heat to everyone's gazes. Xianxia's eyes also lit up upon seeing it. Thus, he turned to Zhao Wei and asked, "That weapon is indeed not bad. Zhao Wei, do you want it?" Zhao Wei possessed the pure yin body, and this sword happened to complement her constitution. If she were to wield it, her battle prowess would surely leap greatly. "Teacher, I think you should save the money to purchase the soulless metal humanoid instead to save Lu Chong." "I don't need it." Zhao Wei shook her head, but her eyes were filled with desire. Chapter 464. Let me give it a try. Even though Zhao Wei found herself desiring this sword greatly, she knew that the reason why her teacher came to Honghai City was to obtain the soulless metal humanoid. If he were to lack the funds to purchase it due to buying this sword for her, he would definitely regret it for life. Knowing Zhao Wei's thoughts, Xianxia said, "It's sufficient that you like it. If we end up having insufficient spirit stones, we can just find some other ways." It wasn't easy to come by an equipment that was compatible with one, and as such, Xianxia didn't purchase many items for his students. Since he had managed to stumble by one for Zhao Wei, he was determined to buy it for her. Find some other ways? What other ways are there now? Zhao Wei was taken aback. For this 5,000 spirit stones, her teacher had gone to the extent of nearly tearing down entire appraiser hall. Where else could he obtain even more spirit stones? After all, he couldn't possibly tear down this auction hall. Simple. Chuckling softly, Xianxia gestured to Sun Qiong and said, "Get the one in charge of the auction over here." "Yes." Sun Qiong blinked his eyes in incomprehension. Even so, since the young master had issued such an instruction, he must have his own purpose. Thus, he immediately left to get the person over. Zhao Wei and the others stared at one another in confusion. Did their teacher really intend to tear down this auction hall? Not too long later, Sun Qiong brought a middle-aged man back with him. Logically speaking, given the middle-aged man's standing, he wouldn't allow himself to be summoned by just anyone so easily. However, this was Hall Master Sai's suite, so he had no choice but to comply. Hall Master Sai. Upon walking into the room, the middle-aged man immediately turned his sight onto the elder. "Manager Luo, you're here. Allow me to make the introductions. This is Xianxia." Hall Master Sai chuckled. "Xianxia, this is Manager Luo Qin. He's in charge of the matters regarding the auction, and if you've any problems, feel free to approach him." Xianxia. Only then did Luo Qin notice that a youngster was seated right beside Hall Master Sai, and on top of that, his disposition didn't pale in comparison to Hall Master Sai. Clearly, he was of esteemed standing as well. "May I know the reason why Xianxia is looking for me?" Stepping forward, Luo Qin clasped his fists and smiled. "Oh, I would like to add an additional item into the auction." Xianxia said. "Add an additional item." Luo Qin was taken aback for a moment before a look of difficulty appeared on his face. The auction has already started, and I'm afraid that it's too late to add anything in. To only bring up the matter now, you must be pulling my leg. Besides, who knows whether the object you are adding in is valuable or not? If it turns out to be fake, won't the reputation of the auction be destroyed? Don't be in such a hurry to deny it. Why don't you take a look first before making up your mind? Anticipating the other party's response, Xianxia smiled nonchalantly. He waved his hands to interrupt the other party. All right then. He didn't think that Xianxia would offer anything that would interest him, but considering how the other party was a Hall Master Sai's guest, and Hall Master Sai even went to the extent of addressing him as Shi, the other party's standing must be rather high. Thus, Luo Qin nodded his head. Hall Master Sai also turned his gaze over. He was curious to see what this young man could take out. Logically speaking, if he had any treasure, he would have brought it up already. He wouldn't have to go through the trouble with the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. Who? Before everyone's intrigued gazes, the young man took out an item. Upon seeing the appearance of the item clearly, Hall Master Sai's body shook and he nearly coughed blood. What was in the young man's hand was a painting. It was the second artifact of the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. It's this. Is it possible for you to put it into the auction as well? Xianxia asked. The most valuable objects on him were naturally the treasures he received from the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. Given how those artifacts were able to the trial for the 5-star appraiser examination, they must be of great value. Purchasing 1 or 2 swords with the sum earned from these artifacts shouldn't be too difficult. This was the reason why Xianxia could remain calm even though he knew that the money he had on him was probably insufficient to take down the soulless metal humanoid. Xianxia, this artifact is incomparably valuable. I think you should just keep it instead. Hall Master Sai chuckled awkwardly as his heart bled profusely. That was a treasure belonging to their appraiser hall. It is one thing that the artifact to acknowledge and follow a new owner, but for you to sell it off at the very next moment. What the heck is this? If you think that it's a pity to see it sold, Hall Master Sai can buy it back. After all, we're friends. I won't demand too much. 5,000 spirit stones will do. Xianxia chuckled. Cough cough. Hall Master Sai's face turned red and he choked on his saliva. Eventually, he shook his head helplessly and said, all right, you should continue on with whatever you're intending to do. He couldn't even take out 3,000 spirit stones at the moment. How in the world could he afford to buy this painting? Even though he was unwilling to see the treasures of the appraiser hall being leaked out, there was nothing he could do. If you doubt the authenticity of this artifact, you can feel free to have Hall Master Sai appraise it. Having received Hall Master Sai's approval, Xianxia turned to Luo Qin and said, there's no need to appraise it. This painting is definitely real. I can tell so much. Unrolling the painting and taking a glance at it, Luo Qin nodded his head. As a manager of an auction hall, his appraising ability was above average as well. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if he couldn't even identify a real treasure when it was placed before him. The painting before him had a profound aura to it and concentrated spiritual energy was gathered around it. The birds in the painting felt as though they would soar out at any moment. Even a fool could tell that this was a valuable masterpiece. All right, take it to the auction then. It'll be best if it can fetch 5,000 spirit stones. Since the other party could recognize the value of the painting, Xianxia could save the hassle of explaining. Thus, he dived straight into the matter. This. Upon hearing the other party's words, Luo Qin hesitated for a moment before saying, Xianxia, even though this painting is of extremely high grade, selling it for 5,000 spirit stones would be impossible. Oh. Then how much can it fetch? Perplexed, Xianxia asked. He wasn't too sure of the prices of artifacts, especially in terms of spirit stones. He thought that since this artifact was found in the harmonious stream of flowing goblets, it should be an incredible treasure. Thus, its value should exceed at least 5,000. But yet, this fellow said that it was impossible. What was going on? At the very most, it can only fetch 500 spirit stones. Luo Qin's face reddened. 500. Xianxia frowned in displeasure. This painting came from the hands of a 5-star painter, and it also possesses a spirit. Not only can it absorb spiritual energy from the air to nourish itself, it also contains the essence of the world that is valuable to cultivators. Even transcendent mortal 4-dan experts would benefit greatly from looking at it for extended periods of time. So, how could it be worth only 500 spirit stones? After the verification from the Library of Heaven's Path, Xianxia could tell that it was authentic, and it was a treasure left behind by a 5-star painter. The grade of the painting had reached the 6th level pinnacle, and it was just a step off from the legendary 7th level. Yet, it was only worth 500? You must be kidding me. Indeed. Who do you think you are fooling? How can such a great painting be worth only that much money? Sun Qiong and the others also found the matter hard to believe. Xianxia, calm down. Listen to my explanation first. Luo Qin hurriedly bowed and explained awkwardly. The painting is exquisite and majestic, and it clearly carries the disposition fitting of a great painter. However, it doesn't have a name, and it isn't signed off either. This causes the value of the painting to drop tremendously. In truth, the art industry is somewhat similar to the antique industry. What that determines the value of an artwork isn't really the quality of the painting itself, but the reputation of the artist. If this painting was created by a famous painter of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, it can easily fetch 5,000 spirit stones. But under the current circumstances, even 500 is a positive estimate. Upon hearing the explanation, Zhong Xian was taken aback. He immediately turned to Hall Master Sai, only to see the latter nodding his head. There's such a matter as well. Zhong Xian fell speechless. Thinking about it, it did make sense. After all, paintings weren't like weapons or medicinal treasures. The latter was truly beneficial to a person's cultivation, whereas the former was more of a personal interest and hobby or an individual. If it wasn't the work of a famous painter, the collection value of the work would immediately plummet. This painting is the work of a 5-star Grandmaster painter Wu Xuanzi from 800 years ago. Is he not considered as a famous painter? Zhong Xian asked. Wu Xuanzi? Of course he's considered as a famous painter. In fact, he's the very first 5-star beast tamer of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. If this is truly his work, it'll be worth more than 500 spirit stones. Just that, even though he possesses a great reputation, he didn't live in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance for too long, and he left behind very few works as well. Luo Qin froze for a moment before asking, how can you prove that this painting is his? Wu Xuanzi was an unparalleled figure in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance 800 years ago. Despite not having reached 200, he had already brought his art of beast taming and painting up to 5-star. However, it was a pity that he left behind too few works in the world. Most appraisers couldn't discern his handwriting or his habits, and as such, it was difficult to determine whether this painting was a work of his or not. Ah! Zhong Xian was stumped. He only knew of the origin of the painting via the Library of Heaven's Path. But, how in the world was he supposed to prove this fact to others? Wu Xuanzi didn't leave behind many works, so it was hard to draw a comparison between his works. Otherwise, this painting wouldn't have remained unidentified for so long a period of time in the appraiser hall. Unless a formidable painter bestows a name upon this painting. Even if the painter's reputation isn't as striking as Wu Xuanzi, as long as they're around the same level and the name he bestows bring out the true disposition of the painting, the title should be recognized by the spirit of the painting and the value of it will immediately increase by several folds. But even so, it'll probably only fetch around 2,000 spirit stones at best. Luo Qin said. Name? Brings out the true disposition of the painting. UN bestowing a name to a completed painting isn't a simple matter. Everyone has different thoughts, and there could many multiple interpretations to a single painting. If one's line of thoughts differs from the original painter by even the slightest, one would be unable to earn the acknowledgement of the spirit of the painting. If so, not only would the value of the painting not increase, it'll even cause a fall in the artistic conception of the original painting, thus resulting in a massive plummet in its value. Luo Qin explained. Thus, the only way is to first understand the background of the painter to attempt to get into his line of thoughts. Only then can one come up with a name that could bring out the true disposition of the painting and boost its value. Otherwise. Even though Luo Qin didn't finish his words, the meaning he wished to convey was clear. 10,000 people viewing a single painting would generate 10,000 different thoughts. To fathom the thoughts of another, how difficult a task it was. In fact, it wouldn't be wrong to say that it was nearly impossible. You're saying that, if one could emulate the original author's understanding of the painting and bestow a fitting name to the painting, there's a chance that it could bring out its true disposition? Zhong Xian asked. That's right. If one understands the thoughts of the original painter, meaning Wu Xuanzi's thoughts, and write them down on the painting, it'll definitely allow the value of the painting to soar. However, putting aside how it's impossible to verify whether it's a painting left behind by Wu Xuanzi or not, even if it is his work, he is well known for keeping a low profile. As such, his background, the condition, and state he is in when he paints are completely unknown to others. And to make things worse, this painting is extremely bizarre as well. It's difficult to even identify the species of the birds in the painting. To fathom the painter's thoughts on top of that, it is impossible. Luo Qin shook his head. Even though he had only taken a look, based on his many years of experience, he could tell that it was impossible to fathom Wu Xuanzi's thoughts. Impossible. After hearing Luo Qin's explanation, Xianxia was taken aback. Then, a smile slowly crept onto his face. Since bestowing a name will boost the value of this painting, let me give it a try. Chapter 465, Rousing from the Drunken Dreams You. Everyone was taken aback. Hall Master Sai's eyes even rolled around. Based on what Sun Qiong said, the other party was a painter. But, even if the other party was a painter as well, to fathom the true meaning behind a painting made 800 years ago, that was an impossible task. Furthermore, the birds in the painting were neither spirit beasts or savage beasts. Since it couldn't be identified at all, how could one bestow it with a name? Putting aside how the painting wouldn't fetch a high price, more importantly, it was a crime to ruin such a valuable art piece. This. Luo Qin scratched his head in embarrassment, not knowing what to do. The main reason why he explained the entire matter so carefully was so as to dispel the other party's thoughts. Who knew that his words would only egg the other party on? Are you that frenzied for money? If it was that easy to come up with a title that would bring out the true disposition of the painting, there would have been at least a single success case in the past few years. Who? Disregarding the crowd's response, Xianxia flicked his wrist and took out a brush. Then, he placed the painting on a table in the room. It might be difficult for others to fathom the thoughts of the painter and find a suitable name for this painting, but he was different. The Library of Heaven's Path could provide him with the ideal name immediately. If he were to write the name, he would surely be able to bring out the true disposition of the painting, thus inducing a leap in the value of the painting. It can't be that. You're serious about doing it. Seeing Xianxia dab his brush in ink, Hall Master Sai hurried forward to persuade him otherwise. You should reconsider your actions. That's a supreme treasure left behind by our predecessors. This treasure had been passed down within the appraiser hall from generation to generation. To have it destroyed right before him, he couldn't allow himself to simply look on by the side. Since it can raise the value of the painting, why shouldn't I do it? Xianxia chuckled. But what if you fail? Hall Master Sai was agitated. He was just about to continue speaking when Sun Qiong walked up to him with a heated gaze. Hall Master Sai, judging from your experience, it seems like you think that our young master will fail. If so, why don't we wager on it then? There's no need to make it too big, 3,000 spirit stones will do. Hall Master Sai's body swayed. What the heck was this? Can't at least one of you two be normal? One insisted on bestowing a name on the painting while the other one was challenging him to a wager so confidently. What's wrong with you two? Hall Master Sai's complexion was extremely awful. He was tempted to accept the wager, but upon recalling the tragic fate that befell Elder Chen, he backed down. This fellow was an incredible figure who could win even the acknowledgement of the harmonious stream of flowing goblets. Perhaps, he might really find the words to bring out the true disposition of the painting. Regarding the wager, I'll pass. With a pale face, Hall Master Sai backed down. Ah! Taking this scene into sight, Luo Qin widened his eyes in shock. Hall Master Sai clearly didn't believe that Xianxia could come up with a correct name, and he was determined to stop him. Yet, with a word from a servant, he immediately backed down from fear. What was going on? When did the Hall Master become so easy to talk to? Just as Luo Qin was perplexed over the situation, he suddenly felt a violent disturbance in the spiritual energy in the air. It seemed to be gathering at an area not too far away from him, and vaguely, he could hear the chirping of the birds. Cho cho cho. The sound was crisp, and even though it wasn't too loud, everyone within the auction hall could hear it clearly. Ah! Following the direction from where the sound came from, he realized that in his short moment of hesitation, that Xianxia had already finished writing a name on the painting. Upon seeing it, the birds chirped and flew excitedly, as though delighted to be given a name. This is elation of unearthed disposition, enlightened spirit? The heck? What the heck is going on? Luo Qin's mouth twitched in agitation, and his body trembled violently. Enlightened spirit. That is a work of the 7th level, a masterpiece that only a 6-star painter can produce. Hall Master Sai's vision went dark. He had just thought that the other party would fail when the other party came up with a name that not only brought out the true disposition of the painting, he even induced the phenomenon elation of unearthed disposition, enlightened spirit. Was this really happening before him? The first 6 levels of painting were as followed: reality depiction, spiritual canvas, infused intentions, breathtaking verisimilitude, spirit creation, and spirit wisdom. Normal 3-star painters could only produce a painting at the level of spirit creation, and a spirit wisdom painting could only be created by the hands of a 4-star and 5-star painter. Going beyond the 6th level, spirit wisdom, the 7th level was a realm that only 6-star painters could hope to reach. Enlightened spirit. At this level, all of the living objects within the painting would come to life, and they would possess their own intelligence and they could acknowledge their own master. In fact, they could even soar out of the painting and they wouldn't disappear even after a day or two. In other words, a painter who had reached this level of enlightenment could easily draw out birds and soar to the skies. It was said that a formidable 6-star painter had once drawn a crane on a wall, and it materialized from the wall. Then, riding on the crane, he soared into the distance, leaving behind the legend of soaring on the heavenly crane. Initially, this drawing should have only been at 6th level pinnacle, and it was still a far way off from reaching the next realm. Even if the name one came up with was able to bring out its true disposition, it should only have added slightly to the harmony of the painting. Yet, Xianxia's name allowed it to immediately surpass its limits and reach the 7th level instantaneously. The heck? Am I insane, or is this fellow mad? Are you a monster? How in the world did you manage to do it? Hall Master Sai's body froze and his eyes were filled with frenzied. At the same time, relief gushed through his body. He felt that it was a blessing that he didn't wager with Sun Qiong. Otherwise, he would probably end up in the same state as Elder Chen. Actually, the frenzy wasn't just limited to the group in the suite. The entire auction hall also broke out in commotion. The ongoing auction for the Cold Yin sword also abruptly came to a halt. The dancing birds weren't just limited to within the suite, they flew through the windows and danced around the auction hall. The bright red flying birds resembled mini suns in the evening, illuminating the entire place with its brilliance. What are those? These birds are illusory beings. Someone has created a painting of the 7th level. A 7th level painting? A 6-star painter? This. Which senior is it? Is this painting for sale? If it is, I'll be willing to put all of my fortune into it. So do I. The dancing birds formed a spectacular sight within the auction hall. Everyone's eyes reddened in excitement. Even the most formidable painter in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance was only at 4-star pinnacle. The legendary Wu Xuanzi from 800 years ago had reached 5-star, but it was a pity that he didn't leave behind any works. Yet, a work that could only come from a 6-star painter had suddenly appeared in the room. How could the crowd not go into a frenzy? It can't be the doing of that Xianxia, could it? The host, Elder Chen, upon seeing that no one's attention was on him, immediately turned to look at the suite where the birds appeared from, and he immediately frowned. That was the Hall Master's suite. He couldn't think of anyone else other than that unfathomable young man who could cause such a huge commotion. While the crowd outside had fallen into a frenzy, Xianxia, who had just completed the painting, kept his brush and smiled at the dumbfounded Luo Qin. May I know if this painting is worth 5,000 spirit stones like that? 5,000? Worth? It's definitely worth that amount. Recovering from his shock, Luo Qin hurriedly nodded his head. Just a named 6th level pinnacle painting was already worth 5,000 spirit stones. A painting of the 7th level. Even if it was sold for 10,000 spirit stones, there would probably be someone who would be willing to fork out the sum. Just by casually writing a few works, this young man had raised the value of the painting by 20 times. It would be a gross underestimation to say that his words were worth gold. Fearsome. Curious to know what it was that the young man wrote that transformed a 6th level pinnacle painting into a 7th level one, they hurriedly turned their gazes to the painting. However, upon taking a look, their bodies swayed and they nearly fell to the floor. It was just 5 squiggly words rousing from the drunken dreams. These 5 words weren't written in any conventional form of calligraphy, rather. It felt as though it was written right after one woke up from a drunken stupor. Even though it was squiggly, there was exquisite in a very different manner. Not only weren't they out of place, it seemed to complement with the bizarre birds on the painting, harmonizing the painting into one entirety. Rousing from the drunken dreams? This is the name of the painting. Luo Qin grabbed his hair frenziedly. If it was anyone else, they would surely be racking their brains to think of the origin of the bizarre birds, given that they were the main theme to the painting. Yet, this fellow simply went on to write rousing from the drunken dreams. And what was even more frightening was that he was right. Could it be that the legendary Wu Xuanzi drew this painting right after he woke up from a dream after drinking the previous day? If that was the case, wasn't this way too difficult to guess? Furthermore, how in the world did this fellow know about it then? Indeed, this painting is indeed made by Wu Xuanzi right after he woke up from his drunken stupor. Xianxia confirmed everyone's doubts. Unable to accept this outcome, Hall Master Sai asked, But, what spirit beasts are those birds? Why haven't I heard of them before? He had stumbled by this painting back then when he was challenging the harmonious stream of the flowing goblets, and for this, he had flipped through innumerable books, but he was unable to find an answer. Since this was Wu Xuanzi's work, these birds should at least have a name. Oh, they're called white purity birds. Xianxia said. White purity birds. That can't be. White purity birds have long wings, purple beaks, golden claws, red head, and they're slightly plump as well. Not only does these birds not possess those unique traits, they clearly possess a slim physique. This time, the one who spoke was Zhao Feiwu. She felt that there was a clear problem in Xianxia's analysis. The white purity bird was a commonly seen spirit beast, and its unique characteristics made it extremely easy to identify. On the other hand, these bizarre birds didn't possess a sliver of those characteristics, so how could they be white purity birds? If those were really white purity birds, Hall Master Sai and the others would have long identified the painting. Oh, when Wu Xuanzi drew this painting, he was still slightly intoxicated, so he depicted the white purity birds inaccurately, resulting in their current forms. Xianxia explained. Inaccurate depiction. At that moment, everyone trembled in shock. Who could have thought that a 5-star painter would make such a fundamental error? Indeed. When he woke up from his stupor, he realized how ridiculous his drawing was, and he thought that if it were to get out, it would surely affect his reputation. However, he found it a waste to tear it apart as well. Thus, he removed his name and signature, thus resulting in this incomplete work. Xianxia said. It was recorded amidst the flaws in the library of Heaven's Path. Initially, when Xianxia first saw it, he felt that it was ridiculous as well. But this was the truth. If it wasn't so ridiculous, Wu Xuanzi would have surely left behind his name, and the painting would have never reached the appraiser hall. This is the result of your appraisal. Hall Master Sai's teeth clattered together, as though fearful of the terrifying monster before him. Chapter 466. Our young master is buying it as a 4-star pinnacle appraiser. He had a deep understanding of the occupation. It was already formidable if one could determine who the painter was based on the brushstroke. To determine that the painting was drawn when the painter was drunk, and that he had removed the title and his own signature from it. Was this truly humanly possible? Hall Master Sai wasn't the only one harboring such thoughts. Zhao Feiwu, Luo Qin, and the others were also dumbfounded by the sight before them. They stared fixedly at Xianxia, determined to find out how he managed to deduce this much. He. Meeting their gazes, Xianxia chuckled softly. Appraising isn't just about identifying a treasure and its origin. More importantly, one should guess the thoughts going through the mind of the creator, and only then can one gain a deeper understanding of an artifact. This painting may seem well organized, but in truth, it's extremely inconsistent. One of the basics of painting is balance, but this painting is high on the left and low on the right, giving a feeling that it is tilted toward one side. Clearly, the person drawing isn't steady on his feet. It is very likely that he was lying on the paper. Also, look at this area, and that area. It's clear those portions can only be drawn when one is lying down. Also, the bizarre birds have short wings, white beaks, black claws, black heads, and a slim body. It doesn't resemble white purity birds at all, and it is impossible to tell what species it is with a single glance. However, if one were to take a closer look, there are reeds and blooming purple flowers all over the painting. Those two are the favorites of white purity birds. And most importantly, every single of those birds has a stalk of grass in its beak. Xianxia pointed. And just as what Xianxia had said, every single bird in the painting had a stalk of grass in their mouth. This grass bears a striking resemblance with riverleaf grass. The riverleaf grass contains lethal poison, and there isn't a single spirit beast that enjoys eating it. As such, it causes some confusion. However, what if these were white jade stem instead? The stems of the white jade grass resemble the riverleaf grass a lot, and there are even medicine suppliers intentionally mixing the two together to earn a larger profit margin. While the white purity bird wouldn't even touch the riverleaf grass, the white jade stem is its favorite food. This. Hall Master Sai and Luo Qin's bodies froze. The other party's words were logical and rational. By following his analysis, one can easily conclude that the birds were white purity birds. Now that we've confirmed the species of the bird, the rest is simple. If one pays careful attention, one can see that the painting is completed in a single breath. Unlike usual paintings, an outline wasn't drawn beforehand. As a talented painter who is capable of producing a work of the 6th level, how could he possibly neglect such fundamentals? More importantly, there are even traces of corrections being made to the birds. Following the previous line of thought, it can be deduced that this painting was done when the other party was in a drunken state. After deducing this much, it isn't that difficult to fathom its origin. Xianxia's lips curled up. He wasn't just spouting nonsense. As a painter with capability of 3-star and above, given that he knew the result in advance and the flaws listed in the Library of Heaven's Path, it wasn't too difficult for him to notice the various peculiarities with the painting. Otherwise, it would be nigh impossible for one to link all of these peculiarities together. This. Seeing how Xianxia explained the entire matter calmly, everyone in the room was frenzied. At this very moment, Hall Master Sai realized that the other party's appraising ability wasn't just slightly higher than his. The two of them weren't even on the same level. I must report it to the headquarter immediately. With his eye of discernment and capability, he should be qualified as a 5-star appraiser at the very least, or perhaps even higher. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Hall Master Sai made up his mind. This fellow's capability had already surpassed the level within the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. He was in no way inferior even when compared to a 5-star appraiser. Given how talented the other party was, he had to report the matter up swiftly so that he wouldn't be buried amidst dust. All right, let's not delay the auction. Take it over. After he was done with his explanation, Xianxia took a glance outside and saw that the entire auction hall had been alarmed by the commotion he caused. Thus, he shook his hands casually and sat back down. Yes. Finally recovering from his shock, Luo Qin carefully rolled the painting, kept it, and backed out of the suite. Not too long later, Elder Chen's shocked voice sounded, "I believe everyone here witnessed the spectacle just a moment ago. A painting of the 7th level has been created, and all of us here were privileged to watch this phenomenal sight." The painting itself came from a grandmaster painter from 800 years ago, Wu Xuanzi, and another rising painter has bestowed it with a name and triggered a spirit euphoria, allowing it to make the breakthrough from the 6th level pinnacle. This is the very first 7th level painting created in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. It's a result of the perfect harmony between the older and current generations. I can't say for sure whether there'll be any more of such miracles in the future or not, but without a doubt, this is unprecedented in history. The more Elder Chen spoke, the more agitated he became. And now, the owner of the painting wishes to auction it off. The starting bid will be 8,000 spirit stones, and each increment must be no less than 1,000. Let the bidding begin. That painting is really up for sale? Great. I want it. 8,000 spirit stones is the starting bid? It's a little expensive, but it'll be worth the price. Hurry up and inform the clan of the matter. Even if we have to mortgage our old residence, we've got to obtain it. No matter the price. Hearing that the painting was up for sale, everyone below fell into a frenzy. A painting of the 7th level had never appeared in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance before. If one could obtain a painting of such level, it would be worth even if one had to go into bankruptcy. Putting everything aside, it was highly likely that the price could increase by several folds when selling it in the future. I offer 9,000. 10,000. 11,000. The price rose swiftly. This. Seeing the frenzy below, Xianxia blinked his eyes in shock. Given how Hall Master Sai could only produce 3,000 spirit stones, he thought that 5,000 would be the limit already. Never in his dreams did he expect to see the price soar to beyond 10,000. Just like Elder Chen and the others, I spent most of my money on the collection of treasures. As such, I don't have many spirit stones on me. Besides, I'm only an individual while they represent an entire power or a prestigious clan. Noticing Xianxia's doubt, Hall Master Sai smiled bitterly. Logically speaking, given how lucrative appraising was as an occupation, these 4-star appraisers should possess immense wealth. At the very least, they should be able to match up to those bidders below. But unfortunately, they spent all of their wealth collecting treasures. As such, their liquid assets were severely limited. 3,000 was already the limit of their wealth. Furthermore, the clan that those bidders below could have thousands of years of history behind them. The wealth that a clan could accumulate over such a long period of time was astonishing. While Hall Master Sai and the others would find it hard to take out 10,000 spirit stones, to those below, it only meant a short moment of financial difficulty. As long as they managed to find a buyer for it, not only would they recoup their losses, they would even earn a huge profit. Within a suite in the auction hall, a young man was currently seated right in front of the window. He carried a majestic and lofty aura reminiscent of a noble dragon. Standing behind him was an elder. Even though he was completely motionless, his very presence felt like an endless abyss, leaving one unable to determine the depth of his strength. It was likely that his cultivation was superior even when compared to Jin Songhai. A 7th level painting? Interesting. Looking at the rousing from a drunken dream that Elder Chen took out, the eyes of the young man gleamed. The elder bowed. Young master, are you interested in it? The young man nodded. A 7th level painting is a valuable treasure even to the elders of the sect. If I manage to buy it, it'll surely be extremely useful to my supporting occupation as a painter. All right, I'll buy it then. Nodding his head, the elder prepared to offer a price. There's no rush to it. We can make our offer after the commotion below dies down. The young man waved his hands casually. Yes. The elder hesitated for a moment before continuing. Just that. I'm afraid that if the price reaches way too high, we might not have sufficient spirit stones to take down the soulless metal humanoid. The soulless metal humanoid is linked to the soul oracles. As long as we take some useful information back to the sect, my standing will surely surge greatly. Once I earn the recognition of the Master Teacher Pavilion, it'll just be a matter of time before I become the #1 expert of the younger generation. The young man chuckled, but there's no need to worry about it. I've already looked into the matter regarding the soulless metal humanoid, and the fellow auctioning the item doesn't seem to intend to sell it for spirit stones. He isn't selling it for spirit stones. The elder was taken aback. If a person took an artifact out for it to be auctioned, shouldn't the purpose be profit? To refuse spirit stones as payment, what did that mean? I heard that fellow's longevity is reaching its limit. As long as his bottleneck continues to confine him, It'll be futile no matter how much spirit stones he has in his possession. Seems like you got it. Indeed, what he wants is a tutelage jade token. The higher grade it is, the better it is, the young man said. Even though spirit stones were valuable, there was a limit to what they could do. If one's cultivation was stuck at a bottleneck, one's longevity would remain at a standstill. If so, it would just be a matter of time before one was reduced to dust. Once one died, what use would money be? One might as well trade it for tutelage jade tokens. In the off chance that one managed to achieve a breakthrough, one could even extend one's longevity. In any case, it was way better than hoarding spirit stones. Besides, with a higher cultivation, it was much easier to earn money. No matter where one went, strength was still the most important factor one needed to possess. Everything else was just secondary. If he only needed tutelage jade token, then this matter is indeed easy to settle. Young master is a talented master teacher yourself. To guide a cultivator from this kind of small place and help him achieve a breakthrough shouldn't be too difficult. Upon coming to a realization, the elder smiled. Of course. After all, I'm aiming for the top 5 places in the master teacher tournament this time around. The young man declared confidently. Young master possesses unparalleled talent. Regardless of whether it's your soul depth or your understanding toward martial arts, you are far superior to the others. I think that even the first 3 places won't be too difficult for you, the elder said. First 3. It'll be hard to say. Those few aren't easy to deal with. However, I'm not afraid of them. Let's see who will get the upper hand then. The young man's expression turned grim for a moment before he shook it off and turned his attention back to the auction hall. All right, it's about time. Make an offer. Right, I still have some uses for spirit stones, so don't waste them. Yes. The elder nodded. At that moment, the price had already come to a standstill. Before such a price, the affluent clans and powers had no choice but to back off. 20,000 calling once. 20,000 calling twice. Is there anyone who can offer a price higher than this? If not, this rousing from the drunken dreams will be going to this friend from the Sweet 14. Elder Chen scanned the surroundings. 20,000 spirit stones? To think that a painting could fetch such a price. Xianxia's eyes glowed when he heard the final price below. Indeed, it seems like no one else can compete with that anymore. 20,000 spirit stones. This is truly a huge sum. Sun Qiong nodded excitedly. Before the duo could finish their words, the voice of an elder sounded. Wait a moment, I offer 21 4-star tutelage jade tokens. Our young master will be taking that painting. Chapter 467. Bidding for the soulless metal humanoid 21. 4-star tutelage jade token? In terms of spirit stones, that will be 21,000 spirit stones. What a generous offer. Incredible. Tutelage jade tokens are incomparably valuable, especially those belonging to 4-star master teachers. Even though the price is publicly known to be 1,000 spirit stones per token, the price in the black market has already reached up to 1,200. 21 of those would mean a hulking sum of around 25,000. Seems like no one will be able to top that price. Upon hearing the offer, the auction hall flew into an uproar. In truth, the most common currency on the continent wasn't spirit stones but tutelage jade tokens. A 4-star tutelage jade token could be traded for 100 3-star tutelage jade token. A 3-star tutelage jade token could be traded for 100 2-star tutelage jade token. So on and so forth. And with 10 spirit stones, one could buy 1 3-star tutelage jade token. Thus, going by the proportions, a 4-star tutelage jade token was worth 1,000 spirit stones, and on top of that, they weren't readily available. One must know that of the entire Myriad Kingdom Alliance, there were only 10 or so 4-star master teachers. On the other hand, there were billions of cultivators. Considering the proportion of the two, one could imagine how lacking the resource was. Usually, if a cultivator were to obtain a 4-star tutelage jade token, they would use it for themselves. Thus, it was hard to find one even in the black markets. Yet, that person in the suite actually offered 21 of those tokens just to buy a single painting. This incomparably generous act made everyone felt frenzied. Incredible! Hall Master Sai's eyebrows twitched as well. Even those of his cultivation would benefit greatly from the guidance of a 4-star master teacher. The value of 21 4-star tutelage jade token clearly exceeded that of 20,000 spirit stones by way too much. Just as Hall Master Sai was about to turn to the young man to congratulate him on his massive profit he had just earned, the other party's complexion darkened and he cursed out loud. The heck? At this moment, Xianxia was undergoing a breakdown within. The reason why he took this painting out was so that he could earn more spirit stones to buy the soulless metal humanoid, as well as to fuel his future cultivation. He was just delighted by the windfall of 20,000 spirit stones when that fellow wrecked his dreams. 21 4-star tutelage jade tokens. Why in the world would I want your tutelage jade tokens? Even the lesson of a 6-star master teacher would be useless to me. No matter how formidable a master teacher was, even if it were Empyrean Xianxia himself, they couldn't guarantee that the contents of his lesson would be entirely correct. However, the Library of Heaven's Path could. As long as a something written had no errors or flaws, it must be correct. As long as he had this with him, there was no master teacher, no matter how formidable he was, who was qualified to become his teacher. That fellow actually hoped to purchase his painting using this toy. Xianxia felt so stifled that he was about to explode. What that left him even more speechless were the countless gazes of envy from the surroundings. Envious your head. Xianxia was on the verge of crying. Xianxia, those are 4-star tutelage grade tokens. Countless people dream of it, you. Seeing Xianxia's reaction, Hall Master Sai was perplexed. Everyone wanted to get their hands on some tutelage jade tokens. Even low-ranked master teachers hoped to receive the guidance of higher-ranked master teachers. Yet, this Xianxia, why did he seem so unhappy? Wasn't it something to be overjoyed about? Suppressing his dismal, Xianxia said, Hall Master Sai, I'll have to trouble you to send a message to Elder Chen to say that I don't need the tutelage jade token. I only want spirit stones. You only want spirit stones. Hall Master Sai was taken aback. Indeed, the actions of a genius couldn't be understood by mortals such as him. UN. Xianxia nodded. All right then. Seeing the other party insist on it, Hall Master Sai could only agree to the matter. 21 4-star tutelage jade token, let's see who else can compete with me. Seeing the uproar in the hall right after his bid was announced, the young man's mouths crept upward. Master teacher was a lucrative occupation, and this tutelage jade token was the main reason behind it. But of course, this token couldn't be given out as one pleased. There was a limit to how much tutelage jade token a master teacher of a certain rank could distribute each year, and this was regulated by the master teacher pavilion. If one's quota exceeded the limit in the first year, he would have to cut down on the next year. After all, master teachers couldn't possibly spend all of their time conducting lessons. They had to cultivate too, and there were many other things they had to attend to as well. To give out 21 tutelage jade token at a single go, that was nearly half a year of lessons for him. 21 4-star tutelage jade token. Is there anyone who can offer a higher bid? If not, this painting will be going to the friend in Suite 23. Elder Chen was clearly stunned by this sudden generous offer as well. However, after a moment of daze, he hurriedly recovered and continued on. However, just as he was about to declare the results, he suddenly heard something and his body froze. Then, with a bizarre face, he shouted, Is there anyone who is offering a price above that of 20,000 spirit stones? If not, this painting will be going to the friend in Suite 14. What? The young man was just swelling in pride at having bought the painting when he heard those words, froze, and nearly keeled over. What was going on? Our young master has just offered 21 4-star tutelage jade token. Does that price not exceed 20,000 spirit stones? The elder couldn't help but ask. If that's insufficient, we can still raise the stakes. Oh, that friend over there, I apologize, but the seller has just told me that is only accepting spirit stones. Elder Chen replied. Only accepting spirit stones. The young man felt his head spin. There was actually such a foolish person in the world. With so many tutelage jade tokens, not only could one from a 4-star master teacher, one could befriend him as well. Yet, this fellow actually turned it down, and went for the cheaper spirit stones instead? That's right. Are there any higher bids? If not, this painting will be going to the friend in Suite 14. Elder Chen continued. The person in Suite 14 was a renowned painter. He thought that he would surely lose the bid given how the other competitor had offered so many tutelage jade token. He didn't expect to make such a sudden comeback. He was overjoyed. Sold. After confirming that there would be no one offering a higher price, the painting was eventually dealt at with a price of 20,000 spirit stones. Damn it, damn it. The young man's face steeled, and he was on the verge of going on a rampage. 4-star tutelage jade tokens were goods that were highly desired but in short supply no matter where one went yet. Over here, he failed to trade them for the item he wanted. This made him infuriated. Go and check the identity and the background of the one who sold the painting. The young man instructed. Yes. The elder walked out, and not too long later, he returned. Reporting to the young master, the painting is sold by the people within Suite 1. If I'm not mistaken, the seller seems to be a friend of the head of the appraiser hall, Hall Master Sai. As for his identity, I wasn't able to get any information on that at the moment. Suite 1. Narrowing his eyes, the young man harumphed. Young master, now that the painting is bought away by someone else, what should we do? The elder asked. Let's put that aside for the moment and focus on obtaining the soulless metal humanoid first. The young man was frustrated, but knowing that there was no helping it, he shook his hands. Once the hammer was struck, no matter how prestigious his standing was, he couldn't reverse the decision. If the seller insisted on dealing in spirit stones, then no matter how formidable he was, there was nothing he could do about it. All right then. The elder also shook his head helplessly. The auction continued on. After selling away the painting which had caused such a huge commotion, the Cold Yin sword was put on sale again, and eventually, Xianxia took it for a price of 700 spirit stones. The artifacts that came afterward didn't cause as much of a storm as Xianxia's painting. Even though they were valuable, they were incomparable to a 7th level painting. On top of the Cold Yin sword, Xianxia bought another 2 artifacts, a spear for Zhengyang and a bodyplate for Yuan Dao. The total price of the 2 objects was around 1,000 spirit stones, so it was still within an acceptable price range. As for Liu Yang and Wang Ying, as there was nothing suitable in the auction, Xianxia wasn't able to buy anything for them. Now, the final object of the auction, as well as the one everyone has been anticipating for, the soulless metal humanoid. As Elder Chen spoke, a stone pedestal slowly rose, and a figure seemingly crafted of gold donning a full body armor appeared before the crowd. Xianxia turned his gaze over as well. It was indeed no different from a human. The only difference was that a huge quantity of metal had been added into the body, enhancing its defense. Activating the Eye of Insight, Xianxia soon shook his head in disappointment. Clearly, this object was beyond his current analytical ability. He wasn't able to discern anything about it at all. This soulless metal humanoid has undergone a collaborative appraisal by Hall Master Sai, Elder Lu, and myself, and we've confirmed that there's no mistake about it. This is the guard of the ancient soul oracles, and it possesses unimaginable value. Elder Chen introduced. However, I'm afraid that I am not in charge of this one. The owner of the soulless metal humanoid has decided to sell it for himself. He intends to trade it for a treasure he needs. Let's invite the auctioneer up on stage then. Following which, an old man walked in from the back of the round stage. This old man had a white beard, his skin was slightly loose, and he carried a slightly archaic aura with him. With just a glance, it was clear that he was advanced in age. Activating the Eye of Insight, Xianxia took a glance at the old man and he immediately frowned. Even though the old man's cultivation seemed to have reached Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan Pinnacle already, for some reason, Xianxia was still able to discern some things about him via the Eye of Insight. Under normal circumstances, the Eye of Insight should only work on those of a small cultivation realm above him. Given that Xianxia was current at half Transcension realm, he should only be able to peer into the floors of a Transcendent Mortal 1 Dan primary stage cultivator. But for some reason, he was able to see some problems from the other party. This was extremely peculiar. That is the person who discovered the soulless metal humanoid. It seems so. Who knows what kind of luck he has to stumble by it. Once he sells it, his wealth will surely increase by leaps and bounds. Indeed, why do I not possess such luck? Upon realizing that it was a decrepit old man who'd found the soulless metal humanoid, a commotion broke out amidst the crowd. Everyone, please calm down. Since everyone is interested in buying this object, let's listen to what he intends to exchange it for. Regardless of whether it is on your own or with your clan, as long as you can produce the item he needs within a single day, you can feel free to make an offer. Elder Chen said. All right. Upon hearing that the conditions for participating were so lax, everyone was overjoyed. Initially, just like Hall Master Sai, they thought that the other party would be trading it for spirit stones. Thus, they brought a huge fortune out with them. Yet, the owner was actually intending to trade it for another object. This had caught them off guard. However, upon hearing that they would be given time to prepare whatever that was needed, they regained their spirit. Who of those who could participate in this auction didn't belong to an influential power? As long as the other party could name out the treasure, they were confident that even if they couldn't find it, they could at least find some news on it. Stepping forward, the old man said, "It is very simple. Everyone here can feel free to offer anything that you can produce within a single day, and if it satisfies me, I'll make the trade immediately." Chapter 468. Bidding for the soulless metal humanoid. Feel free to offer. As long as he's satisfied, he'll make the exchange? What kind of condition is this? Could it be that this fellow is lustful, and we have to prepare some ladies for him? Indeed, this condition is way too bizarre. After all, you can't possibly expect us to fathom his thoughts to give him something he desires. Upon hearing the bizarre condition of the auction, everyone was dumbfounded. In an auction, one would usually demand spirit stones, tutelage jade tokens, or valuable objects. Never had they heard of an auction which the condition was "as long as I'm satisfied." What if that person was unable to find something that satisfies him? Would he refuse to sell it then? What the heck was this? Interesting. In Suite 23, the young man had finally recovered from his shock. The anxiety from his eyes disappeared, and a slight smile crept onto his face. Interesting. The elder was puzzled. The reason why he made this condition is so as to hook a big one, the young man said. Young master, you noticed something about the auction? Simple. As we're dealing with artifacts here, the value might be subjective as people have different needs. As such, interested buyers can only raise their bids to their upper limit in hopes that the artifact they offer will satisfy him. The young man chuckled. This way, the price will soar. All kinds of treasures will be offered, and all he needs to do is to choose the one that is the most valuable and useful to him. This. The elder was stunned. That was indeed the case. There were some treasures hoarded by some of the influential powers that one couldn't obtain by normal means. If they were unwilling to take it out, those items would never see the light of the day. However, for this soulless metal humanoid, there was a good chance that they might take those treasures out. If so, this method of conducting the auction would bring the owner even greater value. Let's forget about that for now, let's see what those people have to offer. Knowing the other party's motive, the young man chuckled silently. Something that would satisfy him. Hearing the condition, Xianxia was taken aback. What arrogant words! Even though the soulless metal humanoid is valuable, it's just an ancient relic now. Who knows whether it still can be used or not? The only reason why most people are interested in it is because it came from the ancient soul oracles. Zhao Feiwu harumphed. In truth, the soulless metal humanoid was no different from a slightly more advanced puppet, wielding the strength of a transcendent mortal 3-dan. If not for research purposes, there was no one who would spend a fortune to purchase it. With a few thousand spirit stones, one could easily hire several transcendent mortal 3-dan experts already. You're wrong. What they truly wanted isn't the soulless metal humanoid but the heritage of the soul oracles. Hall Master Sai shook his head. Heritage. Zhao Feiwu turned to look at Hall Master Sai in bewilderment. I've examined the soulless metal humanoid, and even though it was forged a very long time ago, it's in extremely good condition. If one were to study it carefully, one might be able to uncover the way to forging it. While this puppet only forms a small part of the strength of the soul oracles, it could still become a huge source of fortune, Hall Master Sai said. So what if one uncovers the way to forging this puppet? Would one really use a living human being to forge this darned puppet? Taken aback, Zhao Feiwu frowned. If the Master-Teacher Pavilion were to learn of it, they would surely eliminate that person. It's not to forge the puppet. Hall Master Sai shook his head and explained, there's a limit to a person's lifespan. However, a person's soul can continue existing for a very long time as long as it's well cared for. 400 to 500 years wouldn't be a problem at all. If one learns the way to crafting it, one might learn how to transfer one's soul into this puppet as well. In the ancient times, when the Master-Teacher Pavilion was on a crusade against the soul oracles, they managed to escape on many occasions making use of this method. Transferring one's soul to the soulless metal humanoid to sustain oneself. Zhao Feiwu widened her eyes in shock. Even though she had read a lot of books, this was the first time she was hearing of such a peculiar notion. That's right. Hall Master Sai nodded. He only found out about this after reading through many books concerning the soulless metal humanoid while he was doing his research. The powers who were interested in it also managed to grab hold of this news through certain means, and thus, they went to great extents to prepare for this auction. After all, there were very few people who could resist the allure of an extended lifespan. This was especially for those who were reaching their limit. Even if they had to give up on their humanity to live for just another decade or so, they would be delighted to do so. If that's the case, then this auction will surely raise a storm. Hearing the conversation of the duo, Xianxia sighed. If that was truly the case, many people would surely be frenzied over the soulless metal humanoid. If so, the price would surely rise to an astronomical sum. Since no one is making an offer, allow me to go first. Just as the crowd was contemplating over the matter, an elder below raised his hand and shouted, "It's the Gold Saint Phantom Hands, Liao Yushi. He had made a name for himself 100 years ago. Think that he isn't dead yet. If he were to go first, he might possibly come up with a price that no one will be able to top. Let's just watch on first." After getting a clear glimpse of the elder's appearance, the crowd immediately discussed with hushed voices. Gold Saint Phantom Hands was an expert whose name induced fear across the entire Myriad Kingdom Alliance 100 years ago. Everyone had thought that he was already dead since it had been a century since he had disappeared from the public eye. Yet, to think that not only was he alive and kicking, he even attended this auction and became the first one to make his offer. As an expert who had lived for so many years, no one would believe it if he said that he had nothing valuable on him. Scanning the surroundings, the Gold Saint Phantom Hands Liao Yushi said, "The Ursi Majoris umbrella." Ursi Majoris umbrella? What's that? It's a spirit intermediate tier equipment crafted in reference to the Alpha Ursi Majoris star of the Big Dipper constellation. It is aligned with a formation, and it's an incredible treasure that is both suited for offense and defense. 100 years ago, the entire Myriad Kingdom Alliance trembled before its name. To think that that legendary weapon would appear here. If one were to exchange it for spirit stones, its value would be inestimable. After hearing Liao Yushi's words, the faces of the people who recognized the treasure were astonished, and disbelief marked their faces. The Ursi Majoris umbrella might be incredible, but it's definitely not enough to trade for this soulless metal humanoid. Allow me instead. Old mister, judging by your weak aura, you must be in poor health. I have 1,000-year-old blood ginseng here. Even if you're nearing the end of your lifespan, if you were to consume it, you will definitely be able to live for another decade or so. Before the crowd could recover from their crowd, another cold voice echoed. Everyone turned their gazes over. The one who had just spoken was a middle-aged man with thick, black eyebrows. He was dressed in a luxurious robe, and he had an arrogant expression on his face. It's the Herb Emperor of the Great Herb Gazebo. That is 1,000-year-old blood ginseng. It is much more valuable than the Glacier Spirit Grass sold previously, and even the Ursi Majoris umbrella cannot compete with it. Indeed, the idea of trading with other artifacts is indeed insane. It's just the second offer, but it has already locked out innumerable competitors. How can we compete with this? 1,000-year-old blood ginseng isn't something that one can obtain from the market with just money. Upon hearing the offer of the herb emperor, a commotion broke out once more. Even the eyebrows of the old man on the stage twitched a little. However, he soon calmed down. Clearly, this wasn't the item that he was in desperate need of. The 1,000-year-old blood ginseng might sound incredible, but if a person who doesn't know how to process it consumes it outright, not only will his lifespan not be expanded, he might even die from the violent energy contained within the herb. Rather than that, don't you think that the grade 4 pinnacle spirit pill duodecennial longevity pill is better? Not only does it enhance one's lifespan by 12 years, there are no side effects at all. Isn't it clear which one is better with just a single look? An elder harumphed. It's the head of the Apothecary Guild. Duodecennial longevity pill, the pill famous for being able to extend a person's lifespan by 12 years. Even though it's a grade 4 pill, it's a known fact that one has to be at least a 5-star apothecary to successfully forge it. What a generous offer this is. Insane, everyone has gone insane. Even though only 3 people had made their offers, the atmosphere had already reached a new high. There were many powers here who had made ample preparations beforehand, and they were confident of obtaining the soulless metal humanoid. However, at this moment, they felt an immense pressure weighing down on them. Blood ginseng and duodecennial longevity pill? As long as one's body is incompatible with either of them, it'll become a deadly poison. I have a spirit tier cultivation technique here that is suited for all constitutions. One's cultivation will surely soar swiftly with this. The best way to ensure one's longevity is for one's cultivation to grow, another person said. Cultivation techniques are profound. Without many years of hard work, how can one possibly achieve a breakthrough? On the other hand, I have a grade 4 bottleneck breakthrough pill here. The bottleneck that has been impeding your cultivation all along will be destroyed in an instant, allowing your cultivation to rise accordingly. Don't listen to them. I have a myriad manifestation design. It'll definitely grant you immense power to dominate others. I have. Slowly, all of the powers raised their offers without holding back at all. There were several powers here who was in no way less affluent than the appraiser hall here. Naturally, the artifacts they had to offer were unimaginable. All right, everyone. Just as everyone was in the middle of bickering with one another over whose artifact was better, a calm voice sounded. It was from the old man on the stage. Upon hearing him speak, everyone quickly quietened down. All of the items you all have offered are valuable, but it's a pity that those aren't what I wanted. The old man shook his head. A person among the crowd harumphed in displeasure. Those aren't what you wanted? Then what do you want? If you were to tell us, I believe that at least one of us here can offer it to you. Indeed, just say it. Even though we're interested in the soulless metal humanoid, we don't have the time to be wasting here with you. Seeing that the other party had turned down all of these invaluable artifacts, everyone howled in anger. It's true that we are interested in buying the soulless metal humanoid, but we don't have the time or effort to be guessing your thoughts. Is there even any basis to what you're doing? Or are you trying to play us like fools? After hesitating for a moment, the old man opened his mouth to speak, but his entire body abruptly froze. Then, he slowly closed his eyes and mouth, not saying a word at all. What is that fellow doing? Does he think that we're jokes? Damn it! Not expecting the other party to still be playing such games, the fury of the crowd surged. If not in consideration of the location, they might have rushed forward to beat him up. Xianxia found the other party's abrupt freezing to be extremely bizarre. But just as he was about to use the Eye of Insight to take a closer look, his mind suddenly jolted and a book appeared in the Library of Heaven's Path. That person executed a battle technique. Xianxia was taken aback. There were only 2 reasons behind the appearance of a book in the Library of Heaven's Path. Given that he wasn't in physical contact with the other party, the only possibility was that the other party was using a battle technique. To think that just shutting his mouth was a battle technique in itself. This was way too bizarre. I should take a look at the book first. Even though Xianxia was perplexed, he knew that there was no point pondering over the matter. Thus, he turned his attention to the Library of Heaven's Path and browsed through the book. After flipping through the book, a bizarre expression appeared on Xianxia's face. Such a matter can happen as well. Xianxia blinked his eyes in disbelief. Chapter 469. I can help you get it out. While Xianxia was slightly dumbstruck from the content of the book, that old man had already recovered from his bizarre condition. With a pale face, he surveyed the surroundings and said, I understand the purpose behind why everyone wishes to buy the soulless metal humanoid. If any of you can bring me the treasure I want, on top of this soulless metal humanoid, I'll bring him to the place where I unearthed the metal humanoid as well so that he can explore the secrets of the Soul Oracle. What? Legend has it that the soulless metal humanoids will accompany their Soul Oracle's side, buried along with them even upon death. If it's the place where he unearthed the metal humanoid, doesn't it mean that it's the tomb of a Soul Oracle? After the Soul Oracles were destroyed by the Master Teacher Pavilion, their heritage disappeared from the world. Even if we can't obtain their heritage, as long as we manage to uncover some information on that ancient occupation, there will surely be many people who would be willing to buy that information for hefty sum. More importantly, Soul Oracles were known for being the most lucrative occupation in ancient times due to the nature of their powers. Even appraisers aren't a match for them. If we were to unearth the tomb of a Soul Oracle, we would surely obtain a massive fortune. Indeed, anyone who gets this opportunity will strike it rich. Initially, everyone was rather displeased with the old man due to his ridiculous auction proposal. However, after hearing those words, everyone began trembling in agitation. The responsibility of the Master Teacher Pavilion was to enlighten the world, and they believed in equality in education as well. Unless truly necessary, they would never make a move against other occupations. Back then, it was due to the Soul Oracles pushing things too far that they were exterminated. Even if someone were to obtain their heritage now, as long as they didn't use it for malicious intentions, the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't interfere in the matter. In fact, if one were to make use of this opportunity well, one might even be able to win the grooming and protection of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Besides, given that an intact soulless metal humanoid was dug up, the Soul Oracle buried in the tomb was likely to be extremely powerful before his death. If they were to find the tomb, even if they failed to obtain the Soul Oracle's heritage, they would at least be able to find a whole mountain of treasure that was sufficient to send others frenzied. I must obtain it. Indeed. But, so many invaluable treasures have been turned down already. The other party doesn't seem to be interested in anything at all. Does he expect us to give our entire clan away? Give our entire clan away. That is provided he's willing to accept it first. After a short moment of excitement, the crowd fell back into a dilemma, and they rubbed their glabella in stress. That fellow simply refused to say what he wanted. Everyone here had already offered about everything that could be offered. Was it because the artifacts they offered weren't valuable enough, and he wanted to go for something better? I have the seedling of a 1,000-leaf tree here. Would you be interested in making a trade for this? Just as the crowd was in a dilemma, an impassive voice sounded from one of the suites. 1,000-leaf tree. That legendary spirit tree that can fight and guard over a clan. On the single trunk on a 1,000-leaf tree, there are 1,000 branches, and on each of those branches, there are 1,000 leaves. After it reaches maturity, just like any spirit tool, it'll instinctively protect its owner. On top of that, the 1,000-leaf tree possesses an astonishing cultivation that is on par with even a transcendent mortal 4-dan clarifying turbidity realm expert. If one were to plant the seedling in one's clan, 100 years later, the clan will be blessed with a transcendent mortal 4-dan guardian which would devote its life to protecting the clan. This is an ultimate treasure that all big clans are vying over. This is way better than those spirit weapons, pills, and cultivation technique manuals. Who is in that suite? To think that he would be willing to bring out such a valuable treasure. There was a limit to a person's longevity no matter how powerful one was. There would eventually come a day which one would have to die. As such, it was impossible for an expert to watch over his clan forever. But the 1,000-leaf tree was different. In 100 years, one would gain a powerful guardian that could ensure the prosperity of the clan for the next 100 years. It was no different from having a powerful expert looking after one's clan at all times. Given such, how could the crowd remain calm before such a treasure? To trade it for a soulless metal humanoid. This was truly a losing deal. He can't possibly reject this as well, can he? The crowd turned to the old man on the stage, curious to see how he would react. The soulless metal humanoid was valuable, but it wasn't anything much compared to the 1,000-leaf tree. Given the vast difference in the value of the two artifacts, even a fool would know what to choose. I apologize, but I'm not interested in the 1,000-leaf tree. Just when everyone thought that a new owner of the soulless metal humanoid had been determined, the old man shook his head once more. He's not interested. He rejected it outright? If it was me, I would have definitely made the trade immediately. Such a waste. Clearly, the crowd didn't expect that even a 1,000-leaf tree seedling would be insufficient to move the old man. At this moment, they felt a little frenzied. What in the world did he want? I'll repeat my words once more. As long as anyone can bring out an object that interests me, I'll trade for it immediately. This is a competition over the value of the objects. The old man shook his hands. Interests. Hearing those words, everyone fell silent. For a long while, no one made any offer. You asked for us to offer something that would interest you, but yet, you refuse to tell us what is it that you want. Even if we were to continue making offers like that, who knows whether or not we will ever be able to find something that'll interest you. Why in the world did the auction hall bring such a weirdo in? Glancing at Luo Qin, Elder Chen said, Manager Luo, in my view, this fellow is here to cause trouble. Besides, I don't think that the auction can benefit from a trade of goods. So, why did the auction hall take up this deal? The other party was clearly here to cause trouble. Who in the world auctions items like that? Besides, under normal trades, the auction hall would usually claim a small commission from the sales to earn a profit. However, given that the other party was trading the soulless metal humanoid for another artifact, how was the auction hall supposed to claim a commission off the price? He isn't causing trouble, he has already paid an advance of 5,000 spirit stones. Luo Qin shook his head. He has already paid even though his item hasn't been successfully auctioned yet. Elder Chen was taken aback. Even he was unable to take out so many spirit stones in a single go. To pay this sum in advance. Wasn't he worried that the soulless metal humanoid might not be sold? Indeed. So no matter how he auctions his item, the auction hall won't make a loss at all. Luo Qin said. Then, what does he really want? Elder Chen was perplexed. Since the other party was able to produce 5,000 spirit stones in a single go, it was highly likely that he didn't lack money at all. On top of that, all of the artifacts offered previously were invaluable treasures that had encompassed all sectors, and yet he turned down all of them, even the 1,000-leaf tree. So what was his goal in conducting this auction? I have no idea either. Ever since his arrival, he has spoken less than 10 words to me, so how could I possibly know what he's thinking of? Luo Qin smiled bitterly. He was the manager of the auction, and the sales of the soulless metal humanoid was mainly arranged by him. However, his interactions with the seller were terribly limited. They had barely traded more than a few words. And thus, the other party's thoughts and wants remained an enigma to him. To turn down even the 1,000-leaf tree, interesting. The young man from Suite 23 chuckled lightly. He was the one who made the offer for the 1,000-leaf tree previously. This object was of great value, and even 3 soulless metal humanoid couldn't match up to a single one of it. Only a top-notch genius of a prestigious sect like him was able to take out an item of such quality easily. But it was a pity that the other party wasn't interested in it at all. Young master, it doesn't seem like he's trying to hike up the price, the elder beside him said. Previously, the young master said that the reason why that fellow refused to reveal what he wanted was so as to hike up the prices, but from the looks of it, that didn't seem to be the case. After all, in terms of price, what else could beat the 1,000-leaf tree? To turn down even this object, this only went to show that his motive could be to find something that he really needed. Regardless of what he needs, he surely won't be able to turn this down. Flicking his wrist, a jade token appeared in the young man's hand. Upon seeing the item, the elder was taken aback. He uttered in shock, "Young master, this item is incomparably valuable. Are you sure that you want to make an offer with it?" "That's right." A glint flashed across the young man's eyes, and his lips curled up slightly. "Since he has even refused the 1,000-leaf tree, I can't think of anything else that might interest him." The elder hesitated. "But this item is useful to you too. If I have any problems, I can consult Teacher straight. So in truth, this item isn't of much value to me." The young man waved his hands and said, "Make the offer." "Yes." Seeing the determination on the other party's face, the elder knew that it was impossible to convince him out of it. Thus, nodding his head, he stepped forward to the windows and bellowed, "A half 5-star master teacher long-range tutelage jade token." Everyone in the auction hall was racking their brains to fathom what that fellow on the stage want when the voice sounded. A short moment of silence, and a huge uproar was suddenly generated. Half 5-star master teacher? What does that mean? When a master teacher reaches 4-star and above, the difficulty to advance through the ranks would become exponentially more difficult. As such, there were many people who ended up being stuck at 4-star pinnacle their entire life, unable to make a breakthrough. However, there are clearly master's teachers who possess teaching capability above ordinary 4-star pinnacle but simply haven't reached 5-star yet. Thus, this rank was born. There isn't a half 5-star master teacher in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Even though half 5-star master teachers are, in the truest sense, 4-star pinnacle master teachers, the value of their tutelage jade tokens far surpasses those of ordinary 4-star pinnacle master teachers. Putting everything aside, even the 21 tutelage jade tokens offered before cannot compare up to this in value. I see. Then what is a long-range tutelage jade token? When one obtains an ordinary tutelage jade token, one can look for a master teacher and request for 2 hours of his time for a one-to-one guidance session. However, finding this master teacher is likely to expend a significant length of time. On the other hand, a long-range tutelage jade token isn't restricted by this limitation. A sliver of the master teacher's soul has been infused into the jade token, and when one drips a droplet of blood on it, one will be able to enter an illusionary classroom where one's problems can be solved. In other words, as long as one possesses this item, it's as good as having a half 5-star master teacher around you. No matter what cultivation problem one has, one can inquire about it at any moment. Even though it's just a one-time use object, its value is unimaginable. Being able to undergo the guidance of a half 5-star master teacher on the spot and running around the world with the jade token in hand to look for the specific half 5-star master teacher were two vastly different concepts. The value of this jade token definitely far surpassed that of the previous 21 jade tokens. Having understood this, everyone turned to the old man on the stage to see how he would choose. If he were to reject this as well, then no one here would probably be able to produce a treasure to his liking. The old man also clearly didn't expect the person from the suite to take out such a valuable object. Hesitation clearly surfaced on his expression, and after a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "All right, I'll agree to the trade." He agreed to the trade. Well, I can't imagine him doing otherwise. Hearing that the other party had agreed to it, even though the crowd was a little disappointed, they knew that the value of this jade token was simply too great for anyone to resist. This is more like it. The young man from Suite 23 chuckled lightly upon hearing the old man agree to it. He had even gone to the extent of taking out this treasure. If the other party still continued to turn him down, there would be nothing else he could do. Just as he was preparing to go down and conduct the trade with the old man, a nonchalant voice suddenly sounded from Suite 1. "There's no need to rush into an agreement, I haven't made my offer yet." "You? Do you think that you can produce something even more valuable than my tutelage jade token?" The young man stood up in displeasure. "I can't say for sure whether the thing I can offer is of greater value because my offer is only a single sentence." A calm voice sounded, "I can help you, get it out." "What did you say?" Hearing those words, the old man standing on the stage suddenly froze and his face paled. Then, he began to tremble non-stop. Chapter 470. Xianxia's move 2 in 1 help you get it out? The entire auction hall fell silent. The respectable figures of Honghai City stared at one another with so much frustration that they were about to explode. What the heck was this situation? Who in the world was that hero in Suite 1? Your interest is way too heavy. More importantly, he didn't seem to be in the least embarrassed spouting such dirty words in public. On the contrary, he spoke forcefully and proudly. Big brother, where in the world does your confidence come from? Pu. Hearing those words, the young man from Suite 23 immediately spat out the mouthful of tea that he had just drunk at the elder opposite of him. The heck? I gave out a long-range tutelage jade token that is literally worth cities, and its value doesn't lose out to even a spirit high-tier equipment. If you had made a normal offer, I would still overlook it. After all, it's a fair competition. I can only concede if my financial ability is unable to match up to yours. But help you get it out. What the heck was that? The fellow selling the soulless metal humanoid was already in his declining years, and he looked as though he could pass away at any moment. Yet, you want to help him get it out? Am I being too dirty-minded, or is your taste really that heavy? That. The elder beside the young man wiped the tea off his face, and it took him a long moment before he recovered from the shock. Young master, that person doesn't have long to live, so I doubt that he would be tempted by the pleasures of the body. Besides, even if he is interested, he could simply head to a brothel. Why should he resort to finding a male? Cough, cough. After a bout of violent coughing, the young man finally managed to prevent himself from choking to death. I know that much. Just that fellow from Suite 1 sure is an incredible fellow to be able to say such words. It seems like we aren't the only one astounded by his words. Even that old fellow up there is about to faint. Indeed. No normal cultivator would accept such a depraved offer. How can someone be so shameless? The elder replied indignantly. In the midst of his words, the ruckus below suddenly disappeared, and following closely, an agitated and excited voice sounded. Mister, do you mean your words? The old man on the auction stage was trembling in excitement. His face was flushed, seemingly unable to believe the other party's words. Of course I do. As long as you pass the soulless metal humanoid to me, I'll try my best to help you get it out, the calm voice from Suite 1 replied. All right then, I'll agree to it. Upon hearing the other party's confirmation, the old man nodded his head immediately. Pu. If only I'd known earlier, I would have prepared a few beautiful girls, or perhaps dashing men. Hearing the old man agreeing to the matter readily, everyone felt blood welling up in their chest and they nearly fainted. This works as well? Cultivation technique, weapons, 1,000-leaf tree, and even a half 5-star long-range tutelage jade token. You turned all of them down just for this? Your interest sure is unique. To abandon all of these treasures just for a short moment of pleasure. More importantly, the other party is a male. You have truly opened up our eyes today. What is even more impressive is how the fellow in Suite 1 can speak such words in public without the slightest bit of embarrassment. And most importantly of all, how could you tell that the old man on stage has such an interest? Could it be that you are also? Everyone shuddered. He agreed to it. The young man from Suite 23 trembled. For that moment, it felt as though the skies were rumbling. Did he really come to a prestigious auction, or was this truly a place for such exchanges? Putting aside how his 4-star tutelage jade tokens were turned down from spirit stones, now, even his 1,000-leaf tree and the even more valuable half 5-star long-range tutelage jade token was rejected, all for just a moment of relief. Their world horizons shattered in an instant. He agreed to it. The elder uttered through trembling lips. Damn it! If only I knew that that fellow has such interests, I wouldn't have wasted so much effort. After a moment of dismal, a vicious glint flashed past the young man's face, and he turned around to command. Make the offer saying that we can help him get it out as well. Furthermore, we'll agree to all conditions he sets, regardless of what poses he wants. Young master, you. The elder's body froze. Isn't your sacrifice a little too great? To go so far for a soulless metal humanoid. Young Master Shaw is vicious to himself. Sacrifice? Sacrifice your head. Do you expect me to do it? You think that I, Xianxia, a 4-star master teacher, would do such a thing? You must be joking. If someone has to go, it'll be you. As long as he agrees to sell the soulless metal humanoid to me, you'll have to serve him well. The young man, Xianxia, harumphed. Me? It was just a moment ago that the elder thought that the young master was extremely noble, but after hearing those words, he shuddered and nearly burst into tears. Do you have to be so callous? I watched you grow up from young boy to a young man, and I've followed behind you for so many years. To sell me like that? Surely this isn't right. Who did I offend? I'm already so old and yet I still have to give up my reputation and decency. To not please a young lady but a decrepit, old man? Hurry up. Once they conduct the trade, it'll be too late. Seeing the other party's warped face, Xianxia hurriedly urged him on. Yes. Even though the elder was reluctant to do so, he still stepped forward to the window and said, Our young master wishes to make an offer. He's willing to help you get it out as well. Another one. The heck? There's another one who has given up on his decency as well? How in the world did a normal auction hall turn into a location where such deals are made? Are they all mad? The entire auction hall flew into a frenzy. To think that there would be another one to make such an offer. Where's their pride? Where's their common decency? For this soulless metal humanoid, you all are willing to give up even your dignity? While the stage below was in a frenzy, in Suite 1, Xianxia was also perplexed. He stood up and facing the suite which had just made the offer, he asked, You can help him get it out as well? How do you intend to do it? Shall we compete to see whose technique is better so that he can make a better choice? Based on what he knew, it should be very hard to get that thing out. Even with the omniscient library of Heaven's Path, Xianxia still found the matter troublesome. Thus, he was curious to see what kind of method the other party was going to use. Pu. Hearing those words, Xianxia felt as though a snake was diving around in his chest, and he nearly tore his hair out with his hands. Can you at least have some pride? To compete over whose technique is better? Is it really all right for you to say such things in public? Do you have to be so fierce? Furthermore, what is there to compete about it? The main issue at hand should be just to satisfy him, right? The mouth of the elder beside Xianxia twitched, and tears streamed down his face. Doomed, he knew that his reputation would surely be tarnished at this point. Why? You can't say anything? To make such a claim despite being incapable, are you intentionally trying to jack up the price? Upon seeing that there was no response from Suite 23, the person from Suite 1 continued. What other kind of techniques can I use? Of course it's the one that everyone knows of. Seeing that the elder had been shocked speechless, Xianxia couldn't hold himself back anymore, so he harumphed. The one that everyone knows of. Hearing the other party's frenzied words, Xianxia was even more perplexed. What kind of method is that? You should clarify yourself. He has been plagued by an evil spirit and is currently going through great anguish. What method do you intend to use to get it out? If it is feasible, I'm willing to let you give it a try first. Plagued by an evil spirit? Get it out? This. Xianxia's body swayed and his face paled. If there was a hole in the ground, he would definitely jump in this very instant. What the heck was this? Can your words not be that darned? You kept saying get it out, so I thought you were talking about that. I was even willing to have my close subordinate give up his decency to compete with you, and it turned out to be getting an evil spirit out. You must be toying with me. So it's to force an evil spirit out. The plague of an evil spirit is incomparably dangerous. Under such circumstances, one's life hinges by a thread. It's no wonder that person is refusing all treasures. After all, given that his life is in danger, what use are those treasures? What he wants is probably a way to expel the evil spirit, but if that is the case, why didn't he say anything? That is exactly what stumped me as well. However, being plagued by an evil spirit is an extremely rare occurrence. I've only read about it from some ancient books. How in the world did that fellow manage to stumble by it? Soul oracles are skilled in attacking the souls of others. He must have suffered the retaliation of the evil spirits from the soul oracle whose tomb he dug up. Hearing the words of the person from Suite 1, everyone came to an understanding and wiped away their cold sweat. So it wasn't what they were thinking. What the other party meant was to get the evil spirit out. It seemed like they were the ones who were corrupted. I see. Hall Master Sai heaved a huge sigh of relief and his face flushed red. Xianxia's previous words had nearly scared him to death. He had really thought that the other party had such heavy preferences. Only after hearing this did he come to a realization. In truth, Xianxia also didn't expect his words to incur such a huge misunderstanding. His mind had been too absorbed into getting the soulless metal humanoid that he'd failed to consider the possible innuendo in his words. Just like everyone guessed, the reason behind the affliction of the old man selling the soulless metal humanoid was indeed vengeance from the soul oracle whose tomb was dug up. With his life at stake, it was natural that no treasure would be able to interest him. It was because he had been trying to suppress the evil spirit through the use of battle technique that the Library of Heaven's Path compiled a book on him. It was because of that Xianxia could comprehend what was happening. Recovering from the awkward atmosphere, Song Chao asked, "Based on what I know, the plague of an evil spirit concerns the subject of souls. Since you said that you are able to get it out, does it mean that you are skilled in that subject?" Due to the intricacies behind souls, even master teachers would be stumped before this problem. Based on the other party's voice, he seemed to be rather young. Thus, Song Chao was curious to know what method the other party in mind. The crowd immediately turned their gazes over, and even the old man on the stage seemed a little anxious at this point. He was worried that the man in the suite was just making empty promises. The plague of an evil spirit is similar to a lethal poison corroding one's soul. There's nothing I can do about that. The voice from the suite echoed. Nothing you can do about that? Then. Everyone nearly fainted. The other party had declared so confidently a moment ago, and yet he was saying that he was helpless at this point in time. Wasn't this change in attitude a little too rapid? Having his hope shattered when it was so close to him, the old man couldn't retain his calmness. He immediately asked anxiously, "Then why did you say that you can help me get it out?" "Since I can discern your condition and describe it so aptly, naturally, I have my own means." Man from the suite chuckled. This. The old man was baffled. The other party had clearly stated that he was helpless toward the plague of the evil spirit. But now, he was claiming that he had a solution in mind. Was that fellow playing him a fool, or was there some secret meaning behind those words that he failed to comprehend? Just as the old man was still stuck in bewilderment, the voice from the suite continued, "All right, hand the soulless metal humanoid to me and I'll solve your problem. There are too many people here, so it's not convenient for me to go into detail." "All right." After a moment of hesitation, the old man surveyed the surroundings and bowed. "I thank everyone here for participating in the auction of the soulless metal humanoid. Pardon me, but I've managed to find a buyer already. Thus, I can only apologize to everyone here." After finishing his words, the old man grabbed the soulless metal humanoid. "Who?" With a light smile, the old man put the metal humanoid lying vertically on the stage away before walking off. "Young master, what do we do?" Seeing that the buyer had been confirmed, the elder in Suite 23 started to panic. The young master had come over excitedly with a huge fortune in hand just to buy this soulless metal humanoid, but in the end, he didn't manage to spend a single cent. He could still accept it if the other party's financial ability was above that of his, but the problem was that the other party managed to win over the metal humanoid with just a single word without spending a single cent. The more he thought about it, the more dismal he felt. "What else can we do? Are you able to expel the evil spirit plaguing him?" Song Chao asked with a darkened complexion. "I can't." The elder shook his head. The plague of a spirit involved the subject of soul. Even though his cultivation and knowledge were impressive, there was nothing we could do about the seller's problem as well. Forget it. Go and look into who the person in Suite 1 is. We'll decide on our actions afterward. Song Chao instructed. "Yes." The elder nodded his head. If he didn't even know who the enemy was, how could he make suitable preparations? To be capable of produce a 7th level painting, discern that the seller is plagued by an evil spirit, and show no interest in 4-star tutelage jade tokens. That person in Suite 1 sure is a mysterious figure. Investigate him. Make sure to dig up every single bit of information about him. Song Chao wasn't the only curious one. Everyone in the auction was also dying to know whom that formidable figure in Suite 1 was, especially given how he was able to get Hall Master Sai willingly share his suite with him. This is the soulless metal humanoid. In a vast room in the appraiser hall, Xianxia studied the puppet on the floor in interest. The sale of the soulless metal humanoid meant that the auction had come to an end. Under manager Luo's lead, the old man was brought to the room. The metal humanoid was around the size of a real human, but its physique was much more muscular. As though crafted using metal, its skin was also gold in color. It was hard to tell the person's original appearance under the metal coating. Knowing that this wasn't the time to be examining the object, Xianxia stored it in his storage ring right after confirming the product was authentic. Then, he turned to look at the old man before him. "Mister, please cure me of my affliction." The old man hurriedly clasped his fist. In truth, after seeing that the other party was a young man, he suffered a breakdown. After all, no matter how talented a person was, his extent of knowledge was still limited by his age. He thought that the person who was able to tell that he was plagued by an evil spirit should at least be an old man who was beyond his 60s. He didn't think that the other party would be so young, and he found it hard to believe that such a young person could cure him of his affliction. If not for the other party pointing out his condition accurately, he would have surely thought that this was a scam. UN. Nodding his head, Xianxia started circling around the other party silently. Then, lifting his eyebrow, he said, "Hall Master Sai and Elder Jin, I have something that I would like to trouble you too." "Xianxia, there is no need to stand on ceremony. Feel free to speak whatever that's on your mind." The duo nodded. Even though each of their cultivation was higher than the lad before him, the latter had simply performed too many extraordinary miracles. They didn't dare view him as a junior. Simple. Xianxia sent a telepathic message over. "This." Hearing Xianxia's message, the duo stared at one another in shock. After a moment of hesitation, Hall Master Sai awkwardly asked, "Xianxia, surely this isn't good. Just do as I say. I know what I'm doing." Xianxia nodded. "All right." The duo gritted their teeth. Seeing the look of difficulty on the faces of the two elders, everyone was perplexed, especially the old man selling the soulless metal humanoid. "Does my treatment require the help of these two? Pardon me." Just as he was perplexed, he heard Hall Master Sai and Jin Songhai Harumph at the same moment. Then, the duo lifted their palms and 2 surges of Zhenqi surged into the surroundings, sealing the entire area from the world. "What are you all trying to do?" The old man frowned. Through this action, the duo had sealed his path of escape. In other words, they planned to make a move on him. "Do you all intend to steal the soulless metal humanoid?" Upon realizing something, the old man's eyes narrowed. The soulless metal humanoid was incomparably valuable. As just a transcendent mortal 2-dan pinnacle cultivator, he was still a far way from becoming one of the top experts of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. He knew that if he were to spread the word, there was a high possibility that someone might come after him for it. Thus, as soon as he obtained the object, he immediately rushed to the appraiser hall. He felt that given the appraiser hall's reputation, they shouldn't conduct despicable acts like stealing the goods of its customers. Yet, to think that the respectable hall master would make a move on him himself. Xianxia. Luo Qin also didn't expect such a sight to occur, and his face paled. To think that Xianxia would resort to this eventually. If the appraiser guild were to commit such actions, the reputation of the auction hall would also go down to the drain. An auction hall that had lost its credibility would surely lose all of its customers. "Don't worry. If I intended to kill him, he would already be long dead. There would have been no need for us to seal his surroundings at all." Xianxia rolled his eyes. No matter what, he was a master teacher. The other party should have been able to see through the benevolent face he had. Why was the other party treating him as though a villain who would resort to such petty crimes? To kill a person and rob him of his possession. To think that you can even think of this. It was just a soulless metal humanoid. Its value still wasn't sufficient for Xianxia to go to such an extent. That's good. Hearing Xianxia's promise, Luo Qin heaved a sigh of relief. Turning around, he saw Hall Master Sai and Elder Jin making a move simultaneously. The old man could barely take 2 blows before he was subdued. Then, the duo sealed his cultivation, leaving him completely powerless. These two were top-notch experts. With their strength, dealing with a transcendent mortal 2-dan pinnacle cultivator was a walk in the park. Seeing that the other party had only sealed his cultivation, the old man knew that he was overthinking it and he heaved a long sigh of relief. But still, baffled by the condition, he asked, "What do you all intend to do? Didn't you ask me to expel the evil spirit in you? If we don't limit your movement, how can we expel the evil spirit?" Xianxia smiled. Hearing that the sealing of his cultivation was a necessary procedure to expelling the evil spirit, the old man nodded his head and said, "I see. I'll be depending on you then, Mr. UN." Nodding his head, Xianxia stepped forward. The edges of his lips slowly curled up as he raised his hands. "Pa!" His palms struck the other party's face. "You." The strike had caused the old man to flip on the spot and crash onto the floor. Dumbfounded, the old man stared at Xianxia with widened eyes. What was going on? In exchange for the soulless metal humanoid, you are supposed to expel the evil spirit within me. Yet, you had someone seal my cultivation first before, then came over here to slap me. What are you up to? The old man was just about to ask about the situation when a kick came flying toward him. Pang! What is going on? His words were jammed back into his mouth by the kick, and he was sent flying a few meters away. Struggling to his feet, the old man's eyes were filled with fury. He was about to turn insane at any point now. But of course, he wasn't the only one that was about to turn insane. Everyone in the room looked as though they had seen a ghost. This was especially so for Luo Qin. At this point, he nearly couldn't hold back his tears anymore. Didn't you say that? You aren't intending to kill the other party and steal his possessions? Even if you aren't going to kill him, beating the other party up and taking his possession like that isn't all right either. Thank you for listening to Panda Audiobooks. If you love what you hear and want to support my work, check out the PayPal link in the description. Every bit helps. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notifications bell to stay updated with all our latest audiobook chapters. We'll see you in the next one.